Welcome, fearless explorers of the forgotten, to Montana land of rugged mountains, endless plains, and ghost towns frozen in time. Across this vast state, remnants of mining camps, railroad towns, and frontier settlements remain. They are silent now, but some never truly slept. Ghost towns are relics of history, yet many carry the weight of tragedy, sudden departures, and violent ends. Visitors report footsteps echoing on deserted streets, shadowy figures at broken windows, and whispers that drift on the Montana wind. In these towns, the past lingers in an eerie silence, an unsettling quiet, broken only by the occasional, unexplained sound. Tonight, we explore 25 haunted ghost towns in Montana with eerie silence, from abandoned mining camps to frontier settlements, each with stories of hauntings, tragic deaths, and the spirits that refuse to leave. Some accounts are documented, others whispered in local legend. But all share one truth. In these ghost towns, silence is not empty, it is alive. Keep your lantern close, your senses sharp, and your courage steady, because tonight, the echoes of the past are waiting. Bannack Ghost Town in Beaverhead County, Montana, is a place where history and legend collide, leaving visitors with a palpable sense of the past lingering in the present. Established in 1862 as Montana's first territorial capital, Bannack thrived during the gold rush, attracting miners, merchants, and families seeking fortune and opportunity. Today, it stands largely abandoned, its wooden buildings weathered and its streets silent except for the wind. Yet, it is far from lifeless. Bannack has earned a reputation as one of the most haunted ghost towns in America, with countless reports of ghostly miners, shadowy vigilantes, and unexplained sounds echoing through its deserted streets and old structures. Visitors often report encounters with spectral figures wandering the town. Many describe miners in period clothing, hats pulled low over their faces, moving slowly through the streets or appearing near old mine entrances. Some witnesses claim these apparitions seem to be going about tasks from long ago, checking equipment, carrying tools, or bending over the earth as if searching for gold that remains hidden even in death. The figures are typically fleeting, disappearing when approached, yet leaving a chilling awareness that the town is still inhabited by the spirits of those who once called it home. In addition to miners, shadowy vigilante figures have been reported. Figures that seem to patrol the streets in silence, watching over the empty buildings as though guarding secrets of Bannack's turbulent past. The old saloons of Bannack are frequently cited as hotspots for paranormal activity. Witnesses describe seeing shadowy forms moving behind the bar or across the dance floors, long after the last patrons departed decades ago. Some visitors report hearing faint clinking of glasses, the murmur of conversation, or laughter that seems to rise from nowhere, as if the saloons are still filled with miners celebrating a night of gold or gamblers playing late into the evening. Others have claimed to hear the unmistakable crack of gunfire echoing through these empty buildings, a sound reminiscent of the violent conflicts that occurred in Bannack's early days. These auditory phenomena are often accompanied by cold drafts and an oppressive sensation of being watched, further intensifying the eerie atmosphere. The streets of Bannack contribute significantly to the town's haunted reputation. Long wooden walkways creak underfoot, and the narrow lanes between buildings create long shadows at sunset, giving the impression of movement where none exists. Visitors report glimpsing figures disappearing around corners or down alleyways, only to reappear moments later in a different part of the town. Fog often rolls in during the evening, shrouding the streets in a gray veil and amplifying the sense of isolation and vulnerability. This interplay of light, shadow, and mist gives the town a ghostly quality, where the past seems to bleed into the present, and the line between reality and apparition becomes indistinct. Visitors to Bannack also frequently report sudden cold spots, especially near the old hotel, courthouse, and saloon buildings. These drops in temperature are often localized and intense enough to provoke shivers or goosebumps. Some witnesses describe the feeling of unseen presences brushing past them or standing just behind their shoulder, only to vanish when they turn. Paranormal investigators who have studied the site suggest that these cold spots coincide with areas where the spiritual energy of the town is strongest, where historical events left emotional imprints on the land. Footsteps are another common phenomenon. Many report hearing the clatter of boots on wooden planks, footsteps on gravel, or distant footsteps echoing along deserted streets. Yet when they look, no one is present. Others have heard the scrape of tools against wood, or the soft shuffle of someone walking through the snow or dust that covers the ground. Some suggest these sounds are residual echoes, impressions left behind by miners, settlers, and lawmen whose lives were defined by work, violence, and survival in this harsh frontier town. Gunfire is one of the most unsettling reported phenomena in Ban. Numerous visitors have recounted hearing the sharp crack of pistols or rifles, particularly near the saloons, the old courthouse, or the town's outskirts. Some interpret these sounds as reenactments of historical conflicts, duels, or vigilante justice that occurred during Banac's formative years. Others view them as warnings or remnants of unrest, a reminder that the town's history was marked by lawlessness, greed, and struggle. Even in daylight, the ghostly presence is felt. Visitors describe a heavy atmosphere, a quiet tension that seems to cling to the buildings and streets. The decay of the structures, peeling paint, and sagging roof lines only add to the sense that Banac exists in two time frames, simultaneously, the present and the lingering echoes of its gold rush heyday. Many who walk through the town report a mixture of awe and unease, as if stepping into a living history that refuses to remain entirely in the past. Some visitors have captured photographs showing faint figures or shadowy forms that were not visible to the naked eye, and others have recorded EVP electronic voice phenomena, capturing whispers, footsteps, and unidentifiable sounds. These findings add credibility to the numerous eyewitness accounts and contribute to the town's mystique. Paranormal investigators often note that areas with the strongest activity align with historically significant sites, the old saloon, the general store, and near residential cabins where miners and families once lived. Banac Ghost Town is not merely a historical site, but a place where history continues to manifest in spectral form. The ghostly miners, shadowy vigilantes, phantom lights, unexplained footsteps, and echoes of gunfire create an immersive experience that connects the present with the town's storied past. And that the history of the first territorial capital of Montana is alive, not just in records, but in the very air and shadows of the ghost town. Virginia City in Madison County, Montana, is a town frozen in time, a relic of the gold rush era where the echoes of history linger visibly and invisibly. Established in the mid-19th century, Virginia City thrived as miners, merchants, and their families flocked to the area, seeking fortune in the gold-rich hills. Today, while the streets are largely quiet and many buildings have been preserved as museums or historic sites, Virginia City is also renowned for its paranormal activity. Visitors report ghostly miners and townsfolk, unexplained footsteps, laughter echoing through empty halls, and even the lingering smell of smoke from fires that have not burned in decades. The town's haunted reputation draws tourists, history enthusiasts, and paranormal investigators, all hoping to glimpse the spirits that reportedly still inhabit the area. One of the most commonly reported phenomena in Virginia City is the sound of footsteps on wooden sidewalks and in old buildings. Visitors describe hearing the creak of boards beneath boots or shoes, often in areas where no one is present. These footsteps are sometimes accompanied by the shuffle of clothing or the faint tap of tools being carried. Many witnesses believe these sounds are the echoes of miners going about their work or townsfolk walking to their homes, a reminder of daily life in a bustling gold rush town. The footsteps often appear suddenly, without warning, and vanish just as quickly, leaving an unsettling impression that someone invisible is nearby. Ghostly laughter is another frequently reported occurrence, particularly in abandoned hotels, saloons, and theaters. Visitors have described faint bursts of mirth echoing through long empty hallways, sometimes accompanied by soft murmurs or whispers. The laughter is often playful and fleeting, as though it belongs to children or young adults celebrating moments of joy. Yet it appears in spaces that have been empty for decades. In some cases, the laughter is followed by a sudden cold chill or the sense of a presence standing nearby, reinforcing the eerie feeling that Virginia City's past residents are still lingering among the buildings they once occupied. The smell of smoke is a unique and haunting phenomenon reported by visitors to Virginia City. On quiet mornings or during calm evenings, some claim to detect the faint odor of burning wood or coal, as if fires are still smoldering in long-abandoned homes, hotels, or saloons. This inexplicable scent often accompanies other paranormal experiences, such as the appearance of shadowy figures, sudden cold drafts, or faint sounds of activity. Some interpret this as residual energy, the echoes of fires and daily life from over a century ago, replaying invisibly for those sensitive to the town's haunted energy. Shadowy figures are regularly observed throughout Virginia City, often in the windows of old buildings or drifting along the streets. These figures are typically dark and indistinct, lacking clear facial features. Yet their movements suggest awareness and intent. Some appear to wear miner's hats or period clothing, reflecting the attire of the town's 19th century inhabitants. Witnesses describe seeing figures bending over workbenches, leaning on railings, or walking along wooden sidewalks, only to vanish when approached. Others have reported groups of shadowy figures standing in saloons or theaters, seemingly frozen in the act of conversation or performance. These apparitions are often accompanied by the sensation of being watched, an almost palpable awareness that the spirits of the past are observing the present. The town's architecture and layout amplify these ghostly experiences. Narrow streets lined with wooden sidewalks, weathered storefronts, and buildings with creaking staircases and swinging doors provide the perfect backdrop for paranormal activity. Fog that often rolls in from surrounding hills thickens the atmosphere, blurring lines between shadow and substance. Light from lanterns or the moon can cast elongated shadows across the boardwalks, creating illusions of movement that appear to be more than just tricks of perception. Statues, signs, and old wagons add to the sense that the town is frozen between the living and the dead, where history and the supernatural converge. Visitors also report sudden cold spots, particularly in the interiors of historic hotels, the courthouse, or near former residential buildings. These drops in temperature are often intense enough to raise goosebumps or cause a shiver, and they frequently occur where other phenomena, such as footsteps or shadowy figures, have been observed. Some describe the sensation of an unseen presence moving past them, a fleeting pressure that evokes the feeling of another being in close proximity. Paranormal investigators often note that these cold spots coincide with areas of historical significance, where emotional energy from the past may have left a residual imprint on the environment. Unexplained sounds often accompany visual or sensory phenomena. Visitors describe the soft murmur of voices, the distant clang of metal, or the creak of doors opening and closing on their own. Some have heard the sound of children playing, horses clopping along empty streets, or tools striking wood as though miners were working nearby. Electronic voice phenomenon (EVP) recordings taken by investigators often capture whispers or indistinct phrases, adding credibility to eyewitness accounts. These auditory manifestations, combined with visual sightings and physical sensations, create a layered and immersive haunting that makes Virginia City a uniquely spectral experience. Even during daylight hours, the town exudes an otherworldly energy. Visitors report a sense of history pressing in, a feeling that the buildings themselves retain the lives, laughter, and struggles of those who lived and died there. The preserved nature of Virginia City allows for a tangible connection to the past, yet the paranormal phenomena make it clear that the past is not entirely gone. Shadowy figures, ghostly laughter, unexplained footsteps, and the smell of smoke all contribute to the impression that the town is simultaneously alive with spirits while standing as a historic monument. Virginia City in Madison County is a place where the gold rush era refuses to be confined to memory alone. Shadowy miners, townsfolk, Unexplained footsteps, laughter, and residual sense of smoke combine to create a hauntingly immersive experience. Visitors leave the town with a deep sense of connection to the past, an awareness that history here is not only preserved in buildings and artifacts, but continues to live and manifest in the spirits of those who walked the streets long ago. For those willing to explore, Virginia City offers a haunting, unforgettable encounter where the echoes of a bygone era remain vividly present. Nevada City in Madison County, Montana, is a town steeped in history, its origins tied closely to the gold rush that defined much of the region. Just a short distance from Virginia City, Nevada City thrived during the mid-19th century as miners, merchants, and settlers arrived in search of fortune. Today, while much of the town stands preserved as a historical site, it is also renowned for its paranormal activity. Visitors frequently report ghostly figures, phantom stagecoaches, unexplained sounds, and sudden cold spots, making Nevada City one of the most hauntingly atmospheric locations in the area. The town's rich history, combined with its spectral inhabitants, creates a palpable sense that the past has never truly left. Shadowy figures are among the most commonly reported phenomena in Nevada City. Visitors describe seeing human-like silhouettes moving through the streets, inside saloons, and around old homes. These figures often appear in 19th century clothing, complete with miners' hats, long coats, or dresses typical of the era. Many witnesses report seeing miners bending over tools, saloon patrons leaning over tables, or families walking along the boardwalks, all fading into nothing when approached. Some speculate these apparitions are the spirits of those who lived and worked in the town during its boom years, unable or unwilling to leave the place that defined their lives. Others interpret them as residual energy, a replay of daily life frozen in time, endlessly repeated for those sensitive enough to notice. Saloons are often cited as hotspots for Nevada City's haunting. Shadowy forms are frequently observed, moving behind bars, dancing on empty floors, or lingering near the entrance as though awaiting patrons long gone. Visitors report hearing the faint murmur of conversation, clinking of glasses, and even laughter echoing through spaces that have been abandoned for decades. Some have described the sharp crack of gunfire or the slap of cards on tables, accompanied by the sudden sensation of being watched. These auditory phenomena create an immersive experience, suggesting that the town's social life has left a lingering imprint, echoing across time for anyone daring to witness it. Another frequently reported phenomenon is the sighting of phantom stagecoaches on empty streets. Witnesses have described seeing the faint outline of a horse-drawn carriage moving along the dusty paths, sometimes accompanied by the sound of hoofbeats, the creak of wheels, or muffled voices. The stagecoach often appears near the outskirts of town, where travelers and miners once arrived with supplies or departed on journeys of fortune and risk. These spectral vehicles are reported to vanish when approached, leaving only the stillness of the street and the lingering echo of motion, as if history itself is fleetingly replaying before the eyes of the living. Cold spots are another defining feature of Nevada City's paranormal activity. Visitors frequently report sudden, intense drops in temperature, often coinciding with the presence of shadowy figures, sounds, or locations of historical significance. These cold drafts can provoke goosebumps or shivers, and some describe the sensation of an unseen presence moving past them, brushing along their shoulders or standing behind them for a brief moment. Paranormal investigators often correlate these phenomena with areas where tragic events occurred, such as mining accidents, duels, or sudden deaths, suggesting that emotional energy from the past lingers in the environment. Unexplained sounds are also commonly experienced in Nevada City. Visitors report footsteps echoing along wooden sidewalks when no one is present, the soft creak of doors opening and closing, and the distant clatter of tools or wagons. Whispers and murmurs sometimes seem to come from empty rooms or deserted hallways, creating a sense of presence and observation. Many who have recorded these sounds on electronic voice phenomenon EVP devices have captured faint, unintelligible phrases, moans, or echoes of conversation. reinforcing the reports of visitors who feel the town is more than just a collection of old buildings. The architecture and environment of Nevada City further enhance its haunted reputation. Narrow streets lined with wooden sidewalks, saloons, old hotels, and residential buildings create an intricate network of spaces where shadows and figures can appear unexpectedly. The interplay of light, shadow, and fog often rolling in from the surrounding hills adds to the otherworldly atmosphere. Moonlight reflecting off weathered wood and glass can create illusions of movement, while statues, signs, and abandoned wagons contribute to the sense that the town exists in two layers: the present and the residual energy of its past. Visitors often report the feeling of being followed or watched, particularly near historical homes and buildings. Some describe subtle pressures or the sensation of eyes tracking their movements along empty streets. Others notice that sounds, footsteps, whispers, or distant laughter seem to mirror their actions, appearing in rhythm with their own steps. These experiences amplify the sense that Nevada City is not merely a static historical site, but a place where the spirits of the past continue to move and observe. Even in daylight, the town retains an uncanny energy. Tourists walking the streets report a heavy atmosphere, the sense of history pressing in from all sides. The combination of ghostly figures, phantom stagecoaches, unexplained cold spots, and echoes of sound contributes to the impression that the town remains alive with the presence of those who built, lived, and died there. Every corner, every weathered board, and every abandoned building carries with it traces of a past that refuses to be forgotten. Nevada City in Madison County is a place where history and the supernatural intertwine. Shadowy figures in saloons, phantom stagecoaches, unexplained footsteps, laughter, and cold spots combine to create a hauntingly immersive experience. Visitors leave with the realization that the town is more than a preserved relic of the gold rush. It is a living memory, a spectral reminder of the lives, struggles, and stories of those who came before. For those who venture into Nevada City, the past is never far away, and the spirits of the town remain silently present, lingering along streets, inside buildings, and in the very air that carries the echoes of history. Garnet Ghost Town, located in Missoula County, Montana, is one of the most well-preserved remnants of the state's gold rush era. Yet it is also one of its most haunted. Established in the 1800s, Garnet grew rapidly as miners flocked to the area seeking fortune in the mountains. At its peak, the town boasted dozens of homes, a school, a general store, saloons, and mining operations, all bustling with the energy of those chasing gold. Today, Garnet stands abandoned, its wooden structures weathered, and the streets silent. Yet visitors and paranormal investigators report that the town is far from lifeless. Haunting experiences in Garnet include ghostly miners, shadowy figures moving between buildings, the sound of pickaxes striking unseen rock, and sudden chills that pierce through even the warmest summer days. These phenomena make Garnet a uniquely eerie location, where history and the supernatural intermingle in unsettling ways. Shadowy figures are among the most frequently reported encounters in Garnet. Visitors often describe seeing human-like silhouettes, indistinct yet clearly moving with purpose, appearing among the ruins of homes, the saloon, or near mining shafts. These figures often resemble miners from the late 19th century, complete with hats and clothing worn for hard labor. Some are observed carrying tools, bending over imagined work sites, or walking along the old boardwalks connecting the town's buildings. Many of these apparitions vanish when approached, leaving an uncanny sense of presence that lingers long after the sighting. Witnesses often describe a feeling of being watched or followed, a sensation that seems to move with them as they explore the town's open spaces and narrow alleyways. The sounds of mining are a common phenomenon reported in Garnet. Visitors have recounted hearing the unmistakable strike of pickaxes against rock, even in areas where no mining activity has occurred for over a century. Some describe the faint clatter of tools being handled or the scrape of shovels against the earth, often accompanied by soft murmurs or distant shouting, as though miners are communicating while working. These sounds frequently appear near old shafts or the ruins of mining buildings, and they vanish just as suddenly as they emerge. For those who hear these echoes, the experience is unnerving, offering a vivid auditory connection to the labor and dangers of life in a gold rush town. The saloon and other public buildings in Garnet are hotspots for ghostly activity. Visitors report shadowy figures moving behind the bar or across the dance floor, the faint echo of laughter, and the soft clinking of glasses, despite the buildings being empty for decades. Some have heard arguments or raised voices, as though patrons are settling disputes from long ago. And others have felt a sudden drop in temperature while inside these structures. The combination of visual, auditory, and physical phenomena creates a strong sense of presence, making the saloon and nearby buildings central locations for paranormal experiences. Sudden chills are another defining aspect of Garnet's hauntings. Witnesses frequently report sharp, localized drops in temperature, often in areas where shadowy figures or strange sounds are experienced. These chills can be intense, cutting through warm summer air and leaving visitors shivering despite the heat of the day. Some describe the feeling of unseen hands brushing past them or the sensation of an invisible presence standing close by. Paranormal investigators often note that these cold spots are concentrated near historical sites, such as former homes, mining shafts, or the town's small cemetery, suggesting a connection between the land's history and the lingering spiritual energy. Visitors also report footsteps echoing across the wooden sidewalks, inside abandoned buildings, or along paths between structures. These footsteps are usually rhythmic, as though someone is walking with intention. Yet when witnesses search for the source, no one is present. Some have reported hearing multiple sets of footsteps, sometimes intersecting as if people are walking past each other, creating the illusion of a town still alive with miners, families, and travelers. These sounds, paired with the visual sightings, contribute to the feeling that Garnet is inhabited by the spirits of those who once worked, lived, and died there. The town's geography enhances its haunting presence. Narrow streets and alleys between buildings, the surrounding mountains, and the remnants of mining operations create natural areas for shadows to linger and figures to appear. Fog or mist often settles in the valleys or among the buildings, creating an ethereal atmosphere where light and shadow blur. The interplay of sunlight on weathered wood or the flicker of moonlight over empty windows can make movement appear where there is none. Yet many visitors report that these sightings are far more substantial than mere illusions. The environment amplifies the sense that Garnet is not just a ghost town, but a place where the past continues to exist alongside the present. Even in daytime, the ghostly energy is palpable. Tourists and hikers walking through Garnet frequently describe a heavy feeling, an awareness of being watched, or the sensation of unseen presences moving around them. The combination of visual apparitions, auditory phenomena, and physical sensations makes it clear to many that Garnet is more than just a preserved historical site. It is a space where the miners and residents of the past continue to manifest, lingering among the ruins of their homes and workplaces, unable to leave the place that defined their lives. Garnet's haunting is not limited to a single type of experience. Shadowy miners, the sounds of pickaxes and tools, phantom footsteps, sudden chills, and ghostly presences all combine to create a layered and immersive sense of the supernatural. Visitors leave with the feeling that they have witnessed echoes of the Gold Rush era still playing out in spectral form, and that the town's history is inseparable from its haunting. Garnet Ghost Town stands as a testament to the enduring presence of those who lived and died chasing fortune, and to the idea that some places retain the energy of the past, manifesting in ways that both intrigue and unsettle all who enter. Elkhorn, located in Jefferson County, Montana, is a mining town frozen in time, a relic of the gold and silver rush that once brought life and industry to the region. At its peak in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Elkhorn thrived with miners, merchants, families, and saloons lining the streets. Today, the town is abandoned, its buildings weathered, and its streets silent. Yet, for those who visit, Elkhorn is far from lifeless. The town has developed a reputation as one of Montana's most haunted ghost towns, where ghostly figures, flickering lights, and faint, inexplicable voices create an atmosphere of eerie suspense. Visitors to Elkhorn frequently report seeing ghostly figures walking the deserted streets. These apparitions often resemble miners or townsfolk from the town's bustling era. Many are described wearing period clothing, with hats, coats, and boots characteristic of the late 1800s. Some figures appear to be moving with purpose, as if walking to a job or task left unfinished decades ago, while others seem to drift aimlessly along the old sidewalks or through doorways, vanishing when approached. Witnesses often describe a sudden awareness of being watched, a sensation that intensifies as the figures come into view and vanish as quickly as they appeared. Flickering lights are another common phenomenon reported in Elkhorn. Windows in long-abandoned buildings occasionally glow with a soft, transient illumination, resembling lanterns or oil lamps. These lights sometimes move as though someone is carrying them, or they flicker briefly, casting long shadows along the wooden walls and streets. Tourists have reported seeing these lights in former saloons, general stores, and boarding houses, often accompanied by the sounds of muted footsteps or the creak of doors swinging open and closed. The lights add a spectral dimension to the town, suggesting that the energy of the past continues to manifest in subtle, haunting ways. Visitors also describe hearing faint voices calling out in the darkness. These voices are often unintelligible whispers, cries for help, or snippets of conversation. Some report hearing miners calling to one another near old shafts or tunnels, or women and children speaking from houses long abandoned. Occasionally, the voices rise in urgency, as if seeking attention or assistance, only to fade abruptly. Many who encounter these phenomena experience chills or a sense of unease, as though the town itself is communicating with them across time. Paranormal investigators have recorded these sounds on electronic voice phenomenon (EVP) devices, capturing faint moans, whispers, and even urgent cries that correspond with eyewitness accounts. Shadowy figures are most frequently observed near Elkhorn's historical buildings. The saloon, hotel, and old mining structures are common hotspots. Visitors report seeing indistinct silhouettes moving past windows, disappearing through doors, or standing near structures before fading into the night. Some describe these figures as performing familiar tasks, such as carrying buckets, tending equipment, or walking along the boardwalks. Others seem to be pausing in the middle of the street, frozen as if caught between moments of time. These sightings often leave a lingering sense of unease, the feeling that the town is not entirely empty and that the spirits of its former residents remain bound to the place they once inhabited. Footsteps are another pervasive feature of Elkhorn's hauntings. Visitors describe hearing the rhythmic clatter of boots on wooden sidewalks, soft treads in empty hallways, or gravel crunching along deserted streets. These sounds often appear when no one else is present, sometimes starting and stopping suddenly, leaving witnesses uncertain whether they are real or imagined. Many have felt a sudden, almost physical pressure behind them while hearing these footsteps, as if someone or something were walking alongside them, only to vanish when checked. These experiences create a chilling atmosphere, reinforcing the town's reputation as haunted. Sudden cold spots are frequently reported throughout the town, particularly near former residential buildings, saloons, and the mine entrances. These drops in temperature often appear without warning, cutting through the warmth of a summer day or the calm of an evening. Some visitors describe goosebumps or shivers as they walk through these areas, while others report the feeling of invisible hands brushing against their shoulders or backs. Paranormal investigators note that these cold spots often coincide with areas of high historical activity, such as locations where accidents, disputes, or tragic events occurred, suggesting that the town's emotional history has left a lingering imprint. The geography and layout of Elkhorn contribute to its haunting atmosphere. Narrow streets, wooden sidewalks, and weathered structures create shadows that shift and move with the wind and fading light. Fog or mist frequently settles in the valleys surrounding the town, further blurring the line between reality and apparition. Moonlight reflecting off aged wood or broken glass can create illusions of movement, yet many eyewitnesses insist that what they saw was more than just a trick of light. The natural setting, combined with the remnants of human activity, amplifies the sense that Elkhorn is inhabited by its past. Even during daylight hours, Elkhorn exudes a ghostly energy. Visitors often remark on the heavy feeling in the air, an almost tangible awareness of history pressing in from all sides. The combination of visual apparitions, unexplained sounds, sudden chills, and flickering lights creates a multi-sensory experience that reinforces the town's reputation as one of Montana's most haunted locations. Elkhorn, Jefferson County, is a place where the echoes of history remain vivid. Ghostly figures walking the streets, flickering lights, footsteps, and voices calling out across empty buildings serve as a reminder that the town's past continues to linger. For those who venture into Elkhorn, it is clear that while the residents may no longer live in the town, their presence endures, bound to the buildings, streets, and surrounding hills in ways both mysterious and haunting. Castle Ghost Town in Marr County, Montana, stands as a haunting reminder of the state's gold and silver mining era. Once a thriving town, Castle now sits abandoned, its wooden structures weathered and streets overgrown with grass and weeds. Despite its emptiness, the town is renowned for paranormal activity, drawing both history enthusiasts and ghost hunters eager to experience its eerie atmosphere. Visitors report ghostly footsteps echoing through deserted streets, doors opening and closing on their own, and shadowy figures lingering in the abandoned houses. The silence that envelops the town is often broken by whispers from the past, creating a sense that Castle is far from lifeless. Shadowy figures are among the most frequently reported phenomena in Castle. Many visitors describe seeing silhouettes moving inside windows, walking along the boardwalks, or standing in the middle of empty streets. These figures often resemble townsfolk from the late 19th century, dressed in period clothing such as long coats, hats, or dresses. Some witnesses have observed what appears to be miners carrying tools, merchants tending their shops, or families moving through their homes. These figures frequently vanish when approached, leaving behind a chilling awareness of their presence. The apparitions are sometimes fleeting, visible for only a moment, but they leave a lasting impression, as though the town's former inhabitants are trapped in a loop, replaying moments from their lives long after death. Footsteps echoing along the deserted streets are a hallmark of Castle's haunting. Visitors often report hearing the creak of wooden boards beneath unseen feet or the shuffle of clothing as someone passes by. These footsteps can appear suddenly, growing louder as though someone is approaching, only to fade into silence when investigated. Some describe hearing multiple sets of footsteps, intersecting and moving past each other, giving the impression that the town is still alive with activity. Even in areas where the ground is overgrown or crumbling, the sound of deliberate movement persists, unnervingly consistent with the pace of someone walking through a busy town. Doors opening and closing without explanation are another commonly reported phenomenon. Abandoned houses, saloons, and stores often exhibit sudden movement in doors that swing on their hinges without wind or human contact. Some visitors have described doors opening slowly, creaking as if inviting them inside, only to slam shut moments later. In other instances, doors in the same building appear to move in sequence, as though an invisible presence is moving from room to room. These inexplicable movements reinforce the sense that the town is still inhabited by unseen residents, bound to the buildings they once lived and worked in. Visitors frequently report hearing whispers and faint voices drifting through Castle's streets and interiors. These sounds are often indistinct, fragmented phrases or murmurs, sometimes sounding like conversations, warnings, or calls for attention. In some cases, the whispers seem to follow visitors, appearing to move from one location to another, creating an unsettling feeling of being observed or guided. Paranormal investigators have captured recordings of these phenomena on electronic voice devices, capturing moans, faint speech, or even exclamations that correspond with eyewitness accounts. The whispers often accompany visual sightings, footsteps, or sudden chills. layering the sensory experiences and amplifying the town's eerie reputation. Cold spots are another defining aspect of Castle's paranormal activity. Visitors report sudden, intense drops in temperature, often in areas where shadowy figures or unexplained sounds are observed. Some describe goosebumps or shivers that appear without warning, while others feel a fleeting pressure, as though an unseen presence has brushed past them. Paranormal researchers often find these cold spots correspond to areas of historical significance, such as former homes, the saloon, or the mine entrances, suggesting that emotional energy from past events may linger in the environment. The architecture and layout of Castle amplify its haunted atmosphere. Narrow streets, weathered wooden buildings, and remnants of mining structures create natural spaces for shadows to linger and figures to appear. The interplay of light and shadow, especially during sunrise, sunset, or moonlit nights, can make movement appear in empty buildings or across streets, enhancing the feeling of spectral activity. Fog or mist that often settles in the valleys surrounding the town further obscures vision, blending reality and apparition, and giving visitors the impression that the town exists simultaneously in the present and the past. Saloons, stores, and residential buildings are frequently cited as hotspots for ghostly activity. Visitors report seeing shadowy forms, standing behind counters, leaning on tables, or moving across floors that have long been abandoned. Some have heard laughter, murmurs of conversation, or the sound of objects being handled as though someone were tending to daily chores. In certain houses, footsteps are accompanied by whispers or the sound of doors opening, reinforcing the sense that the town's former residents are performing routines long after death. Even during daylight hours, Castle exudes a palpable sense of presence. Tourists walking through the town often remark on the heavy atmosphere, the awareness of unseen eyes following their movements, or the feeling that the buildings themselves retain echoes of the lives once lived within them. The combination of visual sightings, auditory phenomena, sudden chills, and moving doors creates a multisensory haunting that makes Castle a deeply immersive experience for those willing to explore. Castle Ghost Town in Mark County is a place where history and the supernatural merge seamlessly. Shadowy figures, footsteps on empty streets, doors moving of their own accord, and whispers from the past all contribute to a hauntingly vivid atmosphere. Visitors leave the town with the sense that it is more than just an abandoned mining settlement. It is a living memory of those who inhabited it, a spectral echo of life and labor preserved in time. The spirits of Castle's past continue to linger, moving silently through streets and buildings, ensuring that the town's story remains alive in ways both mysterious and unforgettable. Granite Ghost Town, nestled in Granite County, Montana, is a haunting relic of the state's rich mining history. Established during the late 19th century, Granite thrived as miners and settlers flocked to the area in search of gold and silver. The town once boasted a bustling main street, general stores, saloons, boarding houses, and mining operations that stretched into the surrounding hills. However, as the mines dwindled and disasters struck, Granite was gradually abandoned. Today, the town stands frozen in time, a collection of weathered wooden buildings, collapsed structures, and empty streets. Despite its silence, Granite has become well known for paranormal activity. Visitors report ghostly miners, the clatter of unseen equipment, shadowy figures near old buildings, and a pervasive sense of presence that lingers in the air. Shadowy figures are the most frequently reported phenomena in Granite. Witnesses often describe miners from the late 1800s moving through the ruins, carrying tools or inspecting collapsed structures. Some are seen bending over imaginary rocks, shoveling or striking with pickaxes, while others walk along the old sidewalks, their forms indistinct yet unmistakably human. Many of these figures vanish when approached, leaving a sudden, chilling emptiness. The apparitions are often accompanied by a feeling of being watched, and some visitors report a strong emotional response, sensing the hardship and struggle that defined the lives of Granite's early residents. These spectral miners seem bound to the places where they worked and lived, their energy lingering in the town long after their deaths. Visitors frequently report the sounds of mining equipment moving through empty streets, the clang of pickaxes, the scrape of shovels against stone, and the distant rumble of carts on wooden tracks are commonly heard, even when no human activity is present. Some witnesses describe hearing the whir of pulleys or the low groan of abandoned machinery, creating the impression that the town is still alive with labor. These auditory phenomena often coincide with sightings of shadowy figures, suggesting a connection between the visual and sonic manifestations. The sounds can be sudden and startling, echoing through streets and alleys, and vanishing just as quickly, leaving an unsettling silence in their wake. Collapsed buildings in granite often serve as focal points for ghostly activity. Visitors report seeing spectral figures near the ruins of homes, shops, and mining structures. These figures are sometimes observed climbing over debris, standing on porches, or moving along the edges of the wreckage. The combination of dilapidated architecture and ghostly movement creates a sense of unease, as though the town is frozen in a moment of catastrophe, replayed endlessly by spirits trapped in their final moments. Some witnesses describe a sudden pressure or a cold breeze when near these ruins, reinforcing the sense that the area is charged with lingering energy. Footsteps are another recurring phenomenon. Visitors walking the wooden sidewalks or gravel streets frequently report hearing distinct footsteps behind them or approaching from empty buildings. These sounds are often rhythmic, matching the pace of someone walking with purpose. Occasionally, multiple sets of footsteps intersect or move past one another, giving the impression of a once bustling town still active with miners, merchants, and families. Despite careful searching, the source of the footsteps is never found, enhancing the eerie atmosphere and leaving visitors with the unsettling sense that granite is still inhabited, in some form, by its past residents. Sudden cold spots are a hallmark of granite's hauntings. Witnesses often experience sharp drops in temperature in areas associated with past tragedies, such as collapsed structures, mine entrances, or old residential buildings. Some describe goosebumps, shivers, or the sensation of an unseen presence brushing past them. Paranormal investigators note that these cold spots often correlate with areas where historical accidents or mining disasters occurred, suggesting that the intense emotional energy of past events may have left a lasting imprint on the environment. Whispers and indistinct voices are frequently reported throughout the town. Visitors have described faint murmurs, calls for help, or fragmented conversations drifting across empty streets. Some witnesses hear the voices coming from collapsed buildings, abandoned saloons, or the surrounding hills, giving the impression that the town's residents are attempting to communicate from beyond the grave. Electronic voice phenomenon, EVP recordings made by paranormal investigators often capture faint sounds that correspond with these eyewitness accounts, including groans, whispers, and occasional exclamations, lending credence to the reports of supernatural activity. The layout and geography of granite contribute to its haunting atmosphere. Narrow streets, weathered wooden structures, and the surrounding hills create natural spaces for shadows and figures to appear. Fog or low-lying mist frequently settles over the town, enhancing the ethereal quality of the environment. Moonlight, reflecting off broken windows or warped boards, often creates illusions of movement. Yet many visitors insist that what they witnessed was unmistakably real. The combination of natural and built features amplifies the town's spectral presence, making exploration both thrilling and unnerving. Even during daylight, granite carries an air of the supernatural. Tourists frequently remark on a sense of heaviness, as though the town itself retains echoes of its past. The combination of ghostly figures, sounds of mining, footsteps, sudden cold spots, and whispers creates a multi-sensory experience that immerses visitors in the lives and tragedies of granite's former inhabitants. It is as if the town's history is alive, replaying its moments of labor, struggle, and loss for anyone attuned to its energy. Granite Ghost Town in Granite County, Montana, stands as a remarkable testament to the intersection of history and the supernatural. Shadowy miners, the sounds of equipment on empty streets, sudden cold spots, whispers, and apparitions near collapsed buildings all contribute to the town's haunting reputation. Visitors leave with the sense that Granite is far more than an abandoned settlement, is a place where the past persists, a spectral echo of human endeavor, struggle, and tragedy frozen in time. The spirits of Granite continue to linger, moving silently through the ruins and empty streets, ensuring that the town's story endures long after its heyday. Elkhorn Ghost Town in Powell County, Montana, is a haunting relic of the state's gold and silver mining boom. Once a thriving settlement, Elkhorn was home to miners, merchants, families, and travelers who flocked to the area, seeking fortune in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The town boasted hotels, saloons, general stores, and boarding houses that lined its wooden streets, bustling with activity and life. Today, the town stands abandoned, its buildings weathered by decades of harsh weather. Yet many visitors report that Elkhorn is far from empty. Ghostly lights flicker in windows, shadowy figures move through the ruins, and the echo of footsteps on wooden floors creates an atmosphere thick with lingering energy. The old hotels and saloons of Elkhorn are particularly known for paranormal activity. Visitors often describe seeing ghostly lights glowing in the windows, as if candles or lanterns were still burning inside rooms long abandoned. Some lights flicker, casting shadows that dance across the walls and floors, creating the impression of figures moving inside. Witnesses sometimes catch glimpses of shadowy shapes near doorways or behind furniture, appearing and vanishing with no discernible cause. The combination of dim light and spectral movement produces an unnerving sensation that the town's former residents are performing their routines, continuing their lives long after death. Shadowy figures are among the most commonly reported sightings. Many visitors describe human-like silhouettes moving through hallways, along wooden sidewalks, or through the remains of the town's structures. These figures often resemble miners in work clothes, complete with hats and boots, and sometimes appear to carry tools or other objects. Some witnesses have reported seeing women in period dresses walking through hotel corridors or standing silently in empty saloons, as though waiting for patrons who never return. These apparitions are often fleeting, disappearing when approached, but they leave a profound sense of presence, as if the town itself is inhabited by its past. Footsteps are another defining feature of Elkhorn's hauntings. Tourists frequently report hearing the rhythmic creak of boots on wooden floors or sidewalks, even in buildings where no one else is present. These sounds can start suddenly, growing louder as though someone is approaching, and then fade just as abruptly. Some visitors have experienced multiple sets of footsteps, intersecting as if people are walking past one another, creating the illusion of a busy town frozen in time. The footsteps are often accompanied by other sensory experiences, such as sudden chills or the fleeting impression of an unseen figure brushing past, reinforcing the feeling that the town is alive with unseen energy. Cold spots are commonly reported throughout Elkhorn. Visitors often experience sudden drops in temperature, sometimes intense enough to cause goosebumps or shivers even during warm summer days. These cold areas frequently appear near historical buildings, including hotels, saloons, and boarding houses, suggesting a connection between past activity and lingering spiritual energy. Some report a sense of pressure or an unseen presence near these cold spots, adding to the town's eerie atmosphere and leaving witnesses with the impression that the spirits of past residents remain bound to the structures they once inhabited. Sounds beyond footsteps are also prevalent in Elkhorn. Visitors have reported hearing the faint clinking of glasses in the saloons, murmured conversations, or soft, indistinct laughter drifting across the streets. In some cases, these auditory phenomena seem to emanate from specific buildings or rooms, enhancing the impression that the town's former occupants are still performing familiar routines. Paranormal investigators have captured electronic voice phenomena, EVPs, in the town, including whispers, groans, and occasional exclamations, which corroborate eyewitness reports and provide an unsettling glimpse into the residual energy of the town's past. The layout and environment of Elkhorn amplify its haunting presence. Narrow streets lined with wooden buildings, coupled with uneven sidewalks, and the remnants of mining structures, create natural spaces for shadows to gather and appear. Fog or mist often settles over the town, blending with fading daylight or moonlight to produce ghostly silhouettes. Broken windows and warped boards cast shifting shadows, giving the impression of movement where there is none. Yet many witnesses insist that the experiences go beyond optical illusion. The surrounding hills and trees further enclose the town, creating an atmosphere of isolation that heightens the sense of supernatural activity. Even during daylight hours, the town exudes a palpable sense of history and lingering presence. Visitors often describe a heavy feeling in the air, the sensation of being watched, or the awareness of unseen figures nearby. The combination of visual apparitions, auditory phenomena, sudden chills, and flickering lights provides a multi-sensory, haunting experience. Tourists report leaving with a lasting impression that Elkhorn is more than an abandoned town, it is a place where the energy of the past continues to resonate, replaying moments of life, labor, and even tragedy. For those attuned to its presence, Elkhorn Ghost Town in Powell County is a vivid reminder of Montana's mining history and the lives that once animated its streets. Ghostly lights in windows, shadowy figures moving through buildings, footsteps echoing on wooden floors, and cold spots all contribute to the town's spectral reputation. Visitors leave with a sense that the town is inhabited by its history, with the spirits of long-dead miners, hotel guests, and townsfolk lingering to maintain the memory of their once thriving community. For those who explore its streets and buildings, Elkhorn offers an immersive encounter with both history and the supernatural, ensuring that the town's story endures long after its physical abandonment. Nelson Ghost Town in Jefferson County, Montana, stands as a silent witness to the state's mining past, a place where the echoes of history intermingle with eerie, unexplained phenomena. Once a bustling community fueled by gold and silver discoveries, Nelson thrived in the late 19th century with miners, merchants, families, and travelers filling its streets. Wooden sidewalks lined the town square, while saloons, general stores, boarding houses, and stables formed the lifeblood of daily activity. Today, the town is abandoned, its buildings weathered, and streets overgrown, yet for visitors, Nelson is far from empty. Shadowy figures, sudden chills, whispers, and phantom sounds of horses and wagons create a hauntingly vivid atmosphere, suggesting that the spirits of the past remain tethered to the town they once called home. One of the most frequently reported phenomena in Nelson is the appearance of shadowy figures walking the streets at dusk. Witnesses describe silhouettes of men and women dressed in late 19th century clothing moving along the sidewalks, pausing outside saloons, or vanishing through the doorways of old buildings. Some figures resemble miners carrying tools, while others appear to be townsfolk, engaged in everyday tasks. These apparitions often appear and disappear suddenly, leaving observers with the unsettling impression that the town is replaying scenes from its bustling past. Many visitors report a palpable sense of being watched, a feeling that intensifies when the figures appear in their line of sight before vanishing into the shadows. Footsteps echoing on wooden sidewalks and inside abandoned buildings are another hallmark of Nelson's haunting. Visitors often hear the distinct creak of boots or the shuffle of clothing, even when the buildings are empty. The sounds sometimes begin softly, then grow louder, mimicking the approach of someone walking purposefully through the streets. In some instances, multiple sets of footsteps are heard intersecting, giving the illusion that the town is alive with activity. These sounds frequently occur in the evening or at dusk, heightening the sense of isolation and suspense. Even experienced investigators have reported moments when the footsteps appear to follow them, only to vanish when checked. Cold spots are commonly experienced throughout Nelson, often in areas associated with past activity or tragedy. Sudden drops in temperature can occur on the town square, near saloons, or inside the remains of boarding houses. Visitors describe goosebumps, shivers, or the sensation of an unseen presence brushing past them. Paranormal researchers note that these cold spots often coincide with locations of historical significance, such as former stables, mining structures, or homes where accidents occurred. These sudden chills add to the town's unsettling atmosphere, reinforcing the impression that Nelson is inhabited by unseen entities bound to their former surroundings. Whispers and empty buildings are another frequently reported phenomenon. Visitors have described faint, unintelligible murmurs drifting through abandoned saloons, general stores, and boarding houses. Some interpret the sounds as fragments of conversation, while others believe they are calls for attention or warnings from spirits unable to leave the town. The whispers often seem to follow visitors, moving from room to room or along corridors, creating an unsettling feeling of being observed or guided. Electronic voice phenomenon. EVP recordings from paranormal investigations frequently capture faint speech, groans, and occasional exclamations, corroborating eyewitness accounts and lending further credibility to the reports of supernatural activity. Perhaps the most striking of Nelson's hauntings are the phantom horses and wagons reportedly crossing the town square in silence. Visitors have described seeing shadowy forms of horses pulling wagons along the wooden streets, their hooves and wheels making no sound. Sometimes these apparitions appear as fleeting glimpses, just a shadow against a backdrop of buildings and the setting sun. In other instances, the figures linger, moving slowly across the square before fading into the night. Witnesses often report a sudden drop in temperature or an increase in the feeling of being watched when these phenomena occur, as though the spirits of the horses, wagons, and their riders are bound to the energy of the town itself. The architecture and layout of Nelson enhance its haunted reputation. Wooden sidewalks, weathered buildings, and the surrounding hills create natural spaces for shadows and figures to appear. Broken windows and warped boards cast long, shifting shadows in the fading light, making movement seem possible where none exists. Fog or low-lying mist frequently settles in the valleys surrounding the town, blending with moonlight or sunset, producing ghostly silhouettes that appear to drift through the streets. The isolation of the town, coupled with its decaying structures, heightens the sense of suspense and otherworldly presence. Saloons, hotels, and boarding houses serve as focal points for many of Nelson's supernatural occurrences. Visitors often report seeing figures standing behind counters, walking across floors, or moving along hallways in ways consistent with daily routines from the town's peak era. Some describe hearing the faint clink of glasses, muted conversation, or the shuffle of chairs and tables being moved. These experiences contribute to the sense that Nelson is still inhabited, not by the living, but by echoes of those who once walked its streets. Even during daylight hours, Nelson carries an intangible weight, a sensation of presence that many visitors describe as heavy or thick. The combination of visual apparitions, footsteps, cold spots, whispers, and phantom horses creates a multi-sensory, haunting experience. Those who explore the town often leave with the sense that Nelson is more than a collection of abandoned buildings. It is a living memory of human labor, community, and loss, preserved in the echoes and energies that remain. Nelson Ghost Town in Jefferson County, Montana, is a vivid reminder of the region's mining history and the lives that shaped it. Shadowy figures walking at dusk, phantom footsteps, sudden cold spots, whispers in empty buildings, and spectral horses and wagons all contribute to the town's chilling atmosphere. Visitors leave with the understanding that Nelson is not merely abandoned, it is inhabited by the spirits of those who lived and worked there, ensuring that the town's story remains alive in a hauntingly unforgettable way. Bannock Courthouse, located in Beaverhead County, Montana, is a striking reminder of the early days of the American frontier, built during the late 19th century. This historic building served as the center of law and order for the once thriving gold rush town of Bannock. Its weathered wooden walls, creaking floors, and imposing facade still stand, even as the town around it has long been abandoned. Despite its age and desolation, the courthouse is renowned for its paranormal activity, drawing visitors and ghost hunters alike. Reports of ghostly figures, unexplained sounds, and sudden chilling phenomena suggest that the spirits of former prisoners Lawmen and townsfolk remain bound to the courthouse, reliving the tension and drama that once filled its halls. One of the most frequently reported phenomena at Bannack Courthouse is the appearance of ghostly figures. Visitors often describe seeing shadowy forms in the old cells or walking along the hallways. Some witnesses have reported glimpsing prisoners pacing within their former confines, their movements slow and deliberate, as if trapped in a perpetual state of confinement. Others see the silhouettes of lawmen patrolling the hallways or standing near the judge's bench, their presence commanding attention even though no one else is around. These apparitions frequently vanish when approached, leaving an eerie emptiness that reinforces the courthouse's haunted reputation. Doors moving on their own are another hallmark of Bannack Courthouse's supernatural activity. Visitors have reported doors swinging open or shutting abruptly without any human intervention. In some cases, cell doors rattle or slam as if a prisoner were attempting to escape, even when the building is completely empty. The sounds of doors opening and closing often occur in rapid succession, creating the impression of movement throughout the hallways. Some paranormal investigators believe these phenomena are residual energy from the courthouse's active past, the tension of legal proceedings, arrests, and imprisonments imprinting itself upon the building. Footsteps echoing through the hallways are a common experience for those exploring Bannack Courthouse. Witnesses describe hearing the deliberate tread of boots along wooden floors, sometimes approaching from the judge's chamber, the clerk's office, or the cell block. These footsteps are often accompanied by other sounds, such as the creak of chairs, the rustle of papers, or the soft murmur of voices. In many cases, the footsteps seem to follow visitors, creating a chilling sense of being observed or pursued. Multiple sets of footsteps may be heard simultaneously, as though both prisoners and lawmen are moving through the building at the same time. Sudden cold spots are frequently reported within the courthouse. Visitors often experience sharp drops in temperature when entering certain rooms, standing near cells, or walking along specific hallways. These cold spots can be intense enough to cause shivers or goosebumps, even on warm days. Paranormal investigators note that these temperature drops often coincide with areas where the building's history was most intense, such as the cells, the judge's chambers, or near the witness stand. The sensation of cold often accompanies visual or auditory phenomena, amplifying the unsettling atmosphere of the courthouse. Unexplained noises are another defining feature of Bannack Courthouse. Beyond footsteps and doors, visitors have reported sudden bangs, creaks, whispers, and even distant voices echoing through the empty hallways. Some describe muffled arguments, murmured legal instructions, or the sound of a gavel striking the bench, even though no one is present. These sounds frequently appear without warning, startling those exploring the building and reinforcing the impression that the courthouse is alive with unseen activity. Paranormal investigators have occasionally captured these noises on audio recordings, including faint speech and footsteps that correspond with eyewitness accounts. The architecture and layout of Bannack Courthouse contribute to its haunted atmosphere. The wooden floors, narrow hallways, and small cells create natural acoustics for echoes and amplified sounds. Broken windows, warped boards, and the weathered structure cast long shadows, making movement appear where there is none. The cells, judges' chambers, and witness areas are particularly prone to sightings and sounds, suggesting that the emotional energy of past events remains embedded in these spaces. Visitors often report a heavy feeling in the air, an almost tangible sense of tension or unease that seems to linger long after the building's active days ended. Even in daylight, the courthouse exudes a sense of the past lingering in the present. Tourists often remark on the oppressive weight of history, the feeling that the building's former inhabitants are still watching, and the unshakable impression that the events that once transpired inside continue to play out in some spectral form. The combination of shadowy figures, doors moving without cause, footsteps, sudden cold spots, and unexplained noises creates a multi-sensory experience that leaves visitors both awed and unnerved. Bannack Courthouse in Beaverhead County is more than a relic of Montana's mining and legal history. It is a place where the past persists in spectral form. Ghostly prisoners, lawmen patrolling the halls, doors moving on their own, footsteps echoing on wooden floors, sudden chills, and haunting noises all contribute to its reputation as one of the most haunted buildings in the state. Visitors leave with the impression that the courthouse is far from empty, that the spirits of those who once walked its hallways remain, ensuring that the history and drama of Bonnick continued to resonate in ways both mysterious and unforgettable. Coolidge Ghost Town, located in Muscle County, Montana, is a desolate reminder of early 20th century industrial ambition. Once a bustling community centered around the local coal-fired power plant, Coolidge thrived as workers, engineers, and their families settled near the facility. The town featured company houses, a general store, a school, and a small post office, all serving the daily needs of its residents. Life in Coolidge revolved around the operation of the power plant, which provided both employment and identity to the town. When the plant abruptly shut down decades ago, the residents left, abandoning the structures and leaving the town to the elements. Today, Coolidge stands in eerie silence, its weathered buildings and machinery remaining as ghostly witnesses to a sudden end. Despite its emptiness, visitors report paranormal activity, including shadowy figures, phantom machinery sounds, and unexplained lights, suggesting that the spirits of workers who died suddenly are still bound to the town. One of the most frequently reported phenomena in Coolidge is the appearance of shadowy figures. Witnesses often describe human-like silhouettes moving through the ruins of houses, the empty streets, and the power plant itself. Many of these figures resemble workers, clad in early 20th century clothing, appearing to perform tasks as if the plant were still operational. Some are seen bending over forgotten machinery, inspecting equipment, or walking along deserted walkways. These apparitions often vanish when approached, leaving visitors with the unsettling impression that the town is replaying its history for anyone who steps onto its grounds. In some cases, the shadows appear in groups, moving together as if they were tending to their daily duties before disaster struck. Phantom machinery is another hallmark of Coolidge's haunting. Visitors report hearing the sounds of engines starting, gears turning, and coal carts rattling along tracks, despite all equipment having long since fallen into disrepair. These sounds are often sudden and startling, echoing through empty buildings or across the open streets of the town. Some witnesses describe the rhythmic pounding of pistons or the low hum of generators that can be felt as a vibration in the air. Paranormal investigators have documented these noises with audio equipment, recording sounds that correspond to the operations of long-defunct machinery, lending credibility to the reports of ghostly activity. Unexplained lights are frequently observed in Coolidge's abandoned buildings. Visitors report lantern-like glows appearing in windows of the power plant, in empty homes, or near the old company store. These lights flicker or move slowly, sometimes tracing the contours of rooms as if someone is walking inside. In other cases, the glow pulses rhythmically, resembling the operation of machinery or the illumination of lamps that once lit the town. Witnesses often describe a mixture of fascination and fear when observing these lights, as their presence is inexplicable yet undeniably real. Some paranormal investigators speculate that these lights are residual energy from workers who died suddenly, their presence lingering in the spaces where they labored. Footsteps echoing through empty streets and buildings are another common experience. Visitors frequently hear the distinct sound of boots on wooden floors, gravel crunching along walkways, or footsteps approaching from the plant or abandoned houses. These sounds can start quietly, as if someone is working alone, and grow louder, creating the impression of activity within the deserted town. Occasionally, multiple sets of footsteps intersect, giving the eerie illusion of a bustling town frozen in time. Many visitors report feeling followed or observed, enhancing the sensation that Coolidge is far from empty. Cold spots and sudden drops in temperature are prevalent throughout the town. Visitors often experience chills when walking near the old plant, along deserted streets, or inside abandoned homes. These cold areas are intense enough to cause shivers and goosebumps. sometimes coinciding with shadowy apparitions or phantom sounds. Paranormal researchers suggest that these cold spots may be a physical manifestation of lingering energy from sudden deaths, industrial accidents, or the general stress and hardship endured by the workers of Coolidge. Whispers and faint voices are also reported throughout the town. Visitors describe hearing murmured conversations, the rustle of papers, or fragmented commands from supervisors echoing through empty corridors. These sounds often appear in areas associated with daily operations, such as the plant floor, the office, or workers' housing. Occasionally, these voices seem to follow individuals as they walk through the town, drifting from building to building and vanishing as suddenly as they appear. Some witnesses interpret these sounds as warnings or attempts at communication from spirits still bound to their former lives. The layout and environment of Coolidge amplify its haunted presence. Narrow streets lined with weathered homes, the skeletal remains of machinery, and the looming presence of the power plant create natural spaces for shadows and sounds to appear. Broken windows, warped boards, and rusted metal surfaces cast long, shifting shadows in the fading light, making movement appear where there is none. Fog or low-lying mist often settles over the town, blending with the dim sunlight or moonlight, creating an ethereal, almost cinematic atmosphere. Even during daylight, the town carries a palpable weight. Shadowy figures, phantom machinery, unexplained lights, footsteps, cold spots, and whispers combine to create a multi-sensory experience, immersing visitors in the history and tragedies of the town. Coolidge Ghost Town in Muscle County, Montana, stands as a haunting reminder of a community defined by labor, sudden loss, and industrial ambition. Shadowy figures moving through buildings, phantom machinery operating without human hands, flickering lights, echoing footsteps, and sudden chills all contribute to the town's eerie reputation. Visitors leave with a strong impression that Coolidge is not just abandoned, but inhabited by the lingering spirits of those who once lived and worked there, ensuring that the town's story endures long after its physical decline. The Garnet Hotel, located in the historic mining town of Garnet in Missoula County, Montana, stands as a weathered monument to a bygone era. Once a bustling hub for miners, travelers, and prospectors, the hotel served as a central gathering place for visitors seeking respite from long days of labor in the surrounding mines. Its wooden floors, creaking staircases, and faded wallpaper once echoed with laughter, conversation, and the clinking of glasses in its modest saloon. Today, the hotel sits abandoned, its windows dark and doors sagging on their hinges. Yet for those who venture inside, Garnet Hotel is far from lifeless. Guests report paranormal phenomena, doors opening and closing on their own, whispered conversations in empty rooms, and ghostly footsteps on creaking floors, suggesting that the spirits of former visitors remain tethered to the building long after death. One of the most commonly reported phenomena at Garnet Hotel is the movement of doors. Visitors frequently describe doors swinging open or shutting abruptly without any apparent cause. In some instances, doors in the main hallway slam with enough force to startle anyone nearby, while in other cases, they gently creak open as if inviting someone into a room. Rooms once occupied by guests often seem to be the epicenter of this activity. Witnesses report standing in a hallway or lobby, hearing doors move down corridors or across empty floors, giving the impression that unseen guests are still checking in or leaving the hotel. These movements occur at all hours, day or night, and contribute to the sense that the hotel remains alive with unseen activity. Ghostly footsteps are another hallmark of Garnet Hotel's haunted reputation. Visitors often hear the distinct sound of boots or shoes pacing on wooden floors, climbing stairs, or moving along hallways. These footsteps are sometimes accompanied by the faint creak of floorboards or the shuffle of clothing, as though unseen figures are walking just ahead or nearby. Many witnesses describe the footsteps appearing suddenly, stopping when they approach, or following them throughout the building. Some report hearing multiple sets of footsteps simultaneously, suggesting a crowd of spectral guests engaged in daily routines that mirror the hotel's active past. The echoing sound of footsteps on creaking floors produces an unnerving rhythm, reinforcing the impression that the building is inhabited by its long-departed patrons. Whispers of conversation are frequently reported by visitors to Garnet Hotel. These sounds are often subtle at first, a faint murmur drifting through the hallway, or the soft chatter of voices in an empty room. Some describe hearing snippets of dialogue, as if former guests are speaking to one another, or discussing mundane matters like meals, weather, or travel plans. The whispers are often indistinct, leaving listeners with the impression of conversations that cannot be fully understood. In some cases, the murmurs appear to respond to questions or actions taken by visitors, adding to the sensation of presence and interaction with unseen entities. Paranormal investigators have captured electronic voice phenomena (EVP) in several rooms, including voices calling out names or making brief statements, further reinforcing the hotel's reputation for supernatural activity. Sudden cold spots are another common experience in the hotel. Visitors frequently report feeling sharp drops in temperature when entering specific rooms, standing in hallways, or walking near the lobby. These cold spots can be intense enough to cause shivers or goosebumps, even during warm weather. Some report that the chill is accompanied by a heavy feeling in the air, as though the presence of the unseen guests is pressing down upon them. The combination of cold spots with footsteps, whispers, and moving doors creates a multi-sensory experience that leaves visitors both fascinated and unnerved. The hotel's architecture and layout enhance its haunted atmosphere. Narrow hallways, wooden staircases, and multiple guest rooms provide ample space for shadows and sounds to manifest. Broken windows, warped floors, and peeling wallpaper create shifting patterns of light and shadow, making it easy for visitors to perceive movement or figures where none exist. The rooms themselves, often empty and sparsely furnished, seem to retain an imprint of the hotel's lively past, with some witnesses claiming they can feel the presence of former occupants lingering among the furniture and fixtures. Sightings of shadowy figures are also reported inside the hotel. Guests and paranormal investigators alike describe human-like silhouettes moving along hallways, appearing near doors, or standing silently at the end of corridors. These figures often resemble miners, travelers, or hotel patrons from the late 19th and early 20th centuries, dressed in period clothing. Many witnesses say the figures vanish when approached, leaving only the echo of footsteps or the faint sound of a conversation behind. In some cases, the figures are glimpsed fleetingly through doorways or reflected in broken mirrors, adding to the sense of disorientation and unease. Even during daylight hours, the Garnet Hotel carries a palpable sense of history and lingering presence. Visitors frequently remark on a weight in the air, the feeling of being watched, or the sensation that the building itself is replaying its past. Shadowy figures, moving doors, ghostly footsteps, whispers, and sudden chills combine to create an immersive haunting experience, drawing attention to the lives once lived within the hotel's walls. Garnet Hotel in Missoula County, Montana, stands as a haunting reminder of a vibrant mining town and the guests who once filled its rooms. Doors that open and close on their own, ghostly footsteps echoing on creaking floors, whispers of conversations, and shadowy figures all contribute to its eerie reputation. Visitors leave with the impression that the hotel is far from abandoned, that the spirits of those who stayed there long ago continue to wander its halls, ensuring that the history and stories of Garnet endure in spectral form for all who dare to enter. The Elkhorn Saloon in Jefferson County, Montana, stands as a ghostly monument to the rowdy and bustling life of a bygone mining town. During its heyday, the saloon served as the heart of the community, where miners, prospectors, and travelers gathered after long days in the surrounding mountains. The creak of wooden floors, the clinking of glasses, and the lively chatter of patrons filled the air, while a piano in the corner often provided music for dancing and entertainment. Today, the saloon is abandoned, its wooden boards weathered, windows broken, and fixtures coated with decades of dust and neglect. Yet, visitors and paranormal investigators alike report that Elkhorn Saloon is far from empty. Ghostly figures, phantom music, and unexplained laughter suggest that the spirits of former patrons linger, replaying moments of merriment, mischief, and sometimes tragedy from the saloon's past. One of the most commonly reported experiences at Elkhorn Saloon involves shadowy figures appearing near the bar. Witnesses describe dark silhouettes moving behind the counter, leaning over the bar as if speaking to invisible bartenders or patrons. In some cases, these shadows seem to mimic gestures or actions from the saloon's operational days, picking up glasses, pouring drinks, or gesturing toward empty stools. Others report seeing figures standing in corners or along walls, observing the room as if waiting for something or someone. These apparitions often vanish when approached, leaving only the faint echo of movement and a lingering sense of presence. Many visitors describe a chilling sensation of being watched while exploring the saloon, as if the spirits of past patrons still occupy the space in quiet observation. Phantom music is another hallmark of the Elkhorn Saloon's hauntings. Visitors frequently report hearing the faint sound of piano notes drifting through the empty rooms, even though no instrument has been played in decades. The music often varies, from lively dance tunes to slow, melancholic melodies, as if reflecting the mood of the spirits inhabiting the space. Some witnesses have reported the sound of fiddles or guitars accompanying the piano, creating the illusion of a full band performing in an empty room. The music is said to sometimes respond to movement, with notes growing louder or fading as visitors walk through the saloon, heightening the sense of interaction with the unseen. Paranormal investigators have captured these sounds on audio equipment, with recordings revealing faint piano and string notes that correlate with reported experiences. Unexplained laughter is another eerie feature of the Elkhorn Saloon. Guests often describe the sound of boisterous laughter echoing from empty rooms, hallways, or near the bar. The laughter varies from light chuckles to raucous guffaws, sometimes appearing distant, other times seeming close enough to fill the room. Some visitors claim that the laughter is accompanied by the faint sound of footsteps or the shifting of chairs, as if invisible patrons are still enjoying a drink or storytelling session. The combination of laughter with shadowy figures and phantom music creates a vivid impression that the saloon is replaying scenes from its past, a spectral performance frozen in time, yet eerily alive. Doors and windows, moving without explanation, are commonly reported in the saloon. Visitors have observed doors swinging open or slamming shut despite calm conditions, and windows rattling as though someone were tapping or attempting to look outside. In many cases, these movements coincide with other paranormal activity, such as shadowy figures appearing or music playing, suggesting that the building itself responds to unseen forces or residual energy. These sudden motions often startle visitors, reinforcing the saloon's reputation as one of the most haunted locations in Jefferson County. Cold spots and sudden drops in temperature are also frequently experienced within Elkhorn Saloon. Guests report walking through areas near the bar, the stage, or the main floor and suddenly feeling icy chills, sometimes intense enough to raise goosebumps or cause shivering. The sensation of cold often accompanies visual or auditory phenomena, amplifying the overall eerie atmosphere. Paranormal researchers suggest that these temperature shifts may be linked to emotional energy left behind by the saloon's former patrons, particularly those who experienced hardship, celebration, or sudden tragedy within its walls. The architecture and layout of the saloon enhance its haunted reputation. Wooden floors, high ceilings, narrow hallways, and long bar counters create natural acoustics that amplify sounds and shadows. Broken windows, warped boards, and peeling wallpaper cast long, shifting shadows, making movement appear where there is none. The small stage area, the bar, and the back rooms are particularly active, with multiple reports of apparitions, sounds, and sudden chills originating from these spaces. Even during daylight, Elkhorn Saloon carries a palpable sense of history and lingering presence. Visitors often describe a heavy atmosphere, the impression that the building is observing them, or the feeling that past events are being replayed in ghostly form. Shadowy figures, phantom music, laughter, moving doors, and sudden chills combine to create a multi-sensory, haunting experience, immersing those who enter in the saloon's rich and turbulent history. Elkhorn Saloon in Jefferson County, Montana, stands as a haunting testament to the life and energy of a mining town that once thrived in the mountains. Shadowy figures near the bar, phantom music drifting through empty rooms, unexplained laughter, doors and windows moving on their own, and sudden cold spots all contribute to its reputation as a haunted site. Visitors leave with the impression that the saloon is far from empty, that the spirits of patrons long gone continue to roam its halls, ensuring that the stories, sounds, and memories of Elkhorn endure in spectral form for all who dare to enter. The Virginia City Opera House, nestled in the historic town of Virginia City, Madison County, Montana, stands as a striking reminder of the town's vibrant cultural past. Constructed during the height of the gold rush, the Opera House once hosted traveling performers, local theatrical productions, and musical events that drew miners, townsfolk, and visitors from miles around. Its ornate wooden stage, high ceilings, and intricately carved balconies provided a grand setting for entertainment, laughter, and music. Today, the Opera House remains largely abandoned, its faded curtains, dust-covered seats, and creaking floors testifying to years of neglect. Despite its desolation, the building is known for its paranormal activity, with reports of ghostly figures, phantom music, and unexplained sounds suggesting that the spirits of performers who died suddenly are still present, haunting the stage and audience alike. One of the most frequently reported phenomena in the Virginia City Opera House is the appearance of ghostly performers on the stage. Visitors often describe human-like figures, dressed in period costumes, moving with grace and precision as if engaged in a rehearsal or a performance. Some witnesses have reported seeing dancers pirouetting across the boards, actors delivering lines in empty spaces, and musicians appearing to play instruments that are long gone. These apparitions frequently vanish when approached, leaving only the echo of movement or faint sounds behind. In some cases, multiple figures appear simultaneously, recreating entire scenes from long-forgotten productions, lending a chilling yet mesmerizing presence to the abandoned venue. Phantom music is another hallmark of the Opera House's haunting. Visitors frequently report hearing the faint sound of piano notes, stringed instruments, or orchestral accompaniment drifting from the stage, even though no musicians are present. The music is often described as ethereal, sometimes playful, sometimes melancholic, as if reflecting the emotions of the performers who once graced the Opera House. Some witnesses note that the music appears to respond to their presence, swelling slightly when they approach the stage and fading when they turn away. Paranormal investigators have captured recordings of unexplained melodies and harmonies, corroborating accounts of ghostly performances that seem to continue long after the final curtain fell. Footsteps echoing across the stage and balconies are another common experience. Visitors often hear the distinct sound of boots or shoes on wooden floors, pacing across the stage or climbing staircases to the upper levels. These footsteps are sometimes accompanied by the faint rustle of clothing, the shifting of chairs, or the soft clinking of props being handled. In many cases, the footsteps seem to follow visitors as they move through the building, enhancing the feeling of being observed by unseen performers or stagehands. Multiple sets of footsteps are often reported simultaneously, creating the impression that an entire cast is present, replaying their roles in spectral form. Unexplained cold spots frequently appear throughout the Opera House. Guests often experience sudden drops in temperature near the stage, backstage areas, or in the upper balcony seating. These chilling areas can be intense enough to cause shivers or goosebumps, and are often accompanied by the presence of ghostly figures or phantom sounds. Paranormal researchers suggest that the cold spots may be manifestations of residual energy, possibly left behind by performers who suffered sudden or tragic deaths during their careers. These temperature shifts contribute to the Opera House's eerie and immersive atmosphere, leaving visitors with a tangible sense of otherworldly presence. Doors, curtains, and props have also been observed moving without explanation, Visitors describe stage curtains shifting slightly as if caught by an invisible hand, doors opening or closing on their own, and props sliding or rocking despite the absence of wind or human contact. These phenomena often coincide with the appearance of shadowy figures or the sound of phantom music, suggesting that the opera house is not merely haunted but actively replaying its past in fragmented, ghostly episodes. Some visitors have reported hearing faint murmurs of rehearsed lines or stage directions being called, further reinforcing the impression of unseen performers preparing or performing unseen productions. The architecture and layout of the Virginia City Opera House enhance its haunted reputation. High ceilings, ornate balconies, wooden floors, and narrow backstage corridors create natural acoustics and shadowed spaces that amplify sounds and movement. Broken windows, warped boards, and the faded grandeur of seating areas add to the atmosphere, making fleeting apparitions or ghostly sounds all the more convincing. The stage itself, with its worn floorboards and dusty curtains, is frequently cited as the focal point of activity, with most sightings and auditory phenomena reported in this area. Even during daylight hours, the Opera House carries a palpable sense of history and lingering energy. Visitors often remark on the weight of the building, the feeling that the performers who once entertained the town are still present, and the eerie impression that the past continues to unfold in spectral form. Shadowy figures, phantom music, footsteps, cold spots, and moving props all contribute to a multi-sensory experience that immerses visitors in both the glamour and the tragedy of the Opera House's history. The Virginia City Opera House in Madison County, Montana, stands as a haunting reminder of a town's golden age of culture and performance. Ghostly performers on stage, phantom music drifting through empty halls, footsteps echoing across worn floors, sudden cold spots, and unexplained movements all reinforce its reputation as a site of persistent paranormal activity. Visitors leave with the impression that the Opera House is far from abandoned, that the spirits of those who once graced its stage continue to perform for an audience unseen, ensuring that the legacy and stories of Virginia City endure in ghostly form. The Nevada City Schoolhouse, located in Madison County, Montana, stands as a haunting relic of a time when the town thrived during the gold rush. Constructed in the late 19th century, this modest wooden schoolhouse was once filled with the lively sounds of children reciting lessons, the tapping of chalk on blackboards, and the echoing calls of teachers guiding students through the school day. Its single-room layout, with rows of wooden desks, high windows, and a small teacher's platform, created a space where education and community life intertwined. Over time, as the town's population dwindled and families moved on, the schoolhouse was abandoned, leaving the building to the elements. Today, the structure remains standing, but it is far from silent. Visitors report a range of paranormal phenomena, including the laughter of children, footsteps echoing in empty halls, and fleeting shadows that move along the walls, suggesting that the spirits of former students linger long after the final bell rang. One of the most commonly reported experiences at the Nevada City Schoolhouse is the sound of children's laughter. Witnesses often describe hearing joyful giggles and playful chatter that echo through the empty classrooms, hallways, and stairways. This laughter can range from light and happy to haunting and slightly distorted, as if replaying moments from long ago. Many visitors report that the laughter seems to come from multiple directions, bouncing off the walls and filling the room in ways that defy logical explanation. Sometimes, the laughter appears to be interactive, responding to the movements of those exploring the schoolhouse, giving the chilling impression that invisible children are aware of their presence. Footsteps are another frequent phenomenon. Visitors describe hearing the distinct sound of boots or shoes clomping across wooden floors, chairs scraping, or desk legs tapping as if students were walking from one row to another. The footsteps are often reported in areas where no living person is present, such as the hallways, the back rooms, or the main classroom. Some accounts describe footsteps running up and down the aisles or along the perimeter of the room, creating the impression of children moving quickly between lessons or playing a game of hide-and-seek. Occasionally, Multiple sets of footsteps are heard simultaneously, suggesting that several spirits are still engaged in their daily routines, frozen in time. Fleeting shadows are another hallmark of the schoolhouse's haunting. Visitors frequently report seeing dark, human-like figures darting along the walls or slipping across the floor, only to vanish when directly observed. These shadows are often small in stature, consistent with the size of children, and appear most commonly near desks, doorways, or along the windows where sunlight casts elongated shapes. Some witnesses have described shadows that seem to move with purpose, pausing momentarily near the teacher's platform or following a visitor down the hallway, enhancing the sense that the schoolhouse is still inhabited. These sightings often coincide with other phenomena, such as laughter or footsteps, creating a layered experience that engages multiple senses. Doors and windows moving inexplicably are also frequently reported. Visitors have observed classroom doors swinging open or closing on their own, sometimes slowly, sometimes with a sudden slam. Windows that have long been stuck in place occasionally rattle or shift as though pushed by invisible hands. These movements often occur in conjunction with other paranormal activity, such as shadowy figures or phantom laughter, leading many to believe that the building itself responds to the presence of spirits. Some accounts describe a sensation of doors leading visitors towards certain areas, almost as if the spirits are guiding them through the schoolhouse. Sudden cold spots are another common occurrence. Guests often experience sharp drops in temperature while standing near certain desks. Along the hallways, or by the old teacher's platform, the cold can be intense enough to cause shivers or goosebumps, and it frequently coincides with other phenomena, such as laughter, footsteps, or shadowy movements. Paranormal researchers suggest that these cold spots may be a manifestation of residual energy left by children who died suddenly or tragically, or simply the lingering essence of countless school days replaying in spectral form. Whispers and faint voices are also reported throughout the schoolhouse. Visitors describe hearing snatches of conversation, lessons being recited, or names being called from empty classrooms. These whispers often drift from one room to another, fading before they can be fully understood. Some witnesses report hearing ghostly teachers giving instructions or correcting imaginary students, adding another layer of eerie realism to the haunting. Many visitors interpret these sounds as echoes of the past, remnants of the vibrant life that once filled the schoolhouse. The architecture of the Nevada City Schoolhouse enhances its haunted atmosphere. High windows allow shifting sunlight to create dramatic patterns of light and shadow, while the narrow aisles between desks focus sound in ways that amplify even the faintest movement. The wooden floors creak naturally, making it difficult to distinguish between normal noises and paranormal activity. Peeling paint and weathered walls lend an air of age and decay, intensifying the impression that the building is both a historical relic and a living haunt. Even during daylight, the schoolhouse carries a palpable sense of presence. Visitors often describe feeling watched, sensing unseen children moving about, or hearing phantom sounds that seem to replay long-forgotten lessons. Shadowy figures, laughter, footsteps, moving doors, and cold spots combine to create a multi-sensory experience that immerses guests in the building's history while leaving them with an undeniable sense of the supernatural. The Nevada City Schoolhouse in Madison County, Montana, stands as a haunting testament to the lives of children who once filled its classrooms. The laughter of spirits, footsteps echoing across wooden floors, fleeting shadows, moving doors, and sudden chills all contribute to its reputation as a haunted location. Visitors leave with the impression that the schoolhouse is far from empty, that the ghosts of students continue to play, learn, and move through its halls, ensuring that the history and stories of Nevada City endure in spectral form for anyone daring enough to enter. The Castle General Store, located in the historic mining town of Castle in Marr County, Montana, stands as a silent witness to a bygone era. Once the hub of commerce for miners, settlers, and travelers, the store was filled with the clatter of tins, the chatter of customers, and the rhythmic jingling of the cash register. Shelves were stocked with provisions, tools, and trinkets, and locals gathered there, not only to shop but to exchange news and gossip. Today, the building is long abandoned, its wooden floors warped with age, paint peeling from the walls, and windows clouded with dust. Despite its desolation, the store is far from empty. Visitors have reported a range of paranormal phenomena, including ghostly apparitions behind the counter, phantom voices calling out orders, and the unmistakable jingling of a cash register that has not been used for decades. These experiences suggest that the spirits of those who once worked and shopped in Castle General Store continue to linger, replaying scenes from the store's lively past. One of the most commonly reported hauntings involves ghostly figures appearing behind the counter. Witnesses describe seeing the faint outline of a shopkeeper arranging goods, counting coins, or reaching for items on the shelves. These apparitions often appear fully formed in silhouette, sometimes dressed in period clothing consistent with the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Visitors frequently report that these figures vanish the moment they approach, leaving behind only the sensation that someone is still present. In some accounts, multiple figures appear simultaneously, moving in coordinated, almost lifelike patterns, as if the store is still serving its long-gone patrons. This presence is not threatening, but instead creates a sense that the spirit of the store itself is alive, maintaining its routines despite the absence of living humans. Phantom voices are another frequent phenomenon in the Castle General Store. Visitors have reported hearing orders being called out from behind the counter, faint murmurs of conversation, and the rustle of paper or fabric as if a transaction is occurring. Some witnesses describe hearing their own names spoken softly, or phrases like 10 cents for a loaf or Don T, forget the sugar, as though echoing instructions from decades past. These sounds are often heard in specific locations within the store, such as near the cash register, by the pantry shelves, or along the back wall, suggesting that the spirits are connected to the routines and spaces they once inhabited. Paranormal investigators have captured recordings of these phantom voices, providing evidence that the store's haunting is persistent and interactive. The jingling of the cash register is one of the most iconic reports associated with Castle General Store. Visitors frequently recount hearing the distinct metallic chime of coins being counted or a drawer sliding open and closed, despite the register remaining untouched. This sound often occurs spontaneously and can startle even the most skeptical guests. In some cases, the jingling is accompanied by footsteps behind the counter or the subtle rustling of paper, reinforcing the impression that a spectral shopkeeper is actively conducting business. The phenomenon has been reported both during the day and at night, suggesting that the haunting transcends normal environmental triggers and is tied instead to the history and energy of the building. Footsteps and movement are commonly reported in other areas of the store as well. Visitors describe hearing boots or shoes moving across the wooden floors, often echoing down aisles or near the back entrance. Sometimes these footsteps are accompanied by the sound of shifting boxes, sliding tins, or the clatter of items falling from shelves. Many witnesses report that these sounds appear to follow them, creating the sense that unseen patrons or employees are moving around the store in real time. Multiple sets of footsteps are sometimes heard simultaneously, suggesting that the store remains populated by a bustling, spectral crowd. Cold spots and sudden changes in temperature are also frequently experienced within Castle General Store. Guests often feel icy drafts when standing near the counter, in corners, or along the shelves. These sudden chills are commonly reported in conjunction with visual or auditory phenomena, such as apparitions, phantom voices, or the jingling cash register. Some visitors describe the sensation of being watched while these chills occur, adding a layer of psychological intensity to the haunting. Paranormal researchers suggest that these cold spots may be manifestations of residual energy, perhaps left behind by the store as former occupants or by the daily routines of past customers and shopkeepers. The architecture and layout of the store enhance its haunted reputation. Wooden floors, tall shelving, narrow aisles, and a central counter create natural acoustics that amplify even subtle sounds. Light filtering through dusty windows casts shifting patterns and shadows across the room, making movement easier to perceive and reinforcing the impression of spectral activity. Broken glass, warped wood, and faded paint contribute to the atmosphere, allowing visitors to imagine the presence of unseen figures carrying out everyday tasks. Even in daylight, the Castle General Store carries a palpable sense of history and lingering presence. Visitors often report feeling observed, sensing motion from empty corners, or hearing phantom sounds that seem to echo daily routines from long ago. Shadowy figures, phantom voices, the jingling of the cash register, footsteps, and cold spots combine to create a multi-sensory, haunting experience, immersing visitors in the building's rich past while leaving them with an undeniable impression of the supernatural. The Castle General Store in Ma County, Montana, stands as a haunting reminder of the town's vibrant mining-era community. Ghostly figures behind the counter, phantom voices calling out orders, the jingling of a cash register, footsteps echoing along wooden floors, and sudden chills all contribute to its reputation as a haunted site. Visitors leave with the sense that the store is far from empty, that the spirits of shopkeepers and patrons continue to carry out their routines, preserving the history, energy, and memories of Castle for anyone brave enough to step through its doors. The Granite Saloon, located in the once bustling mining town of Granite in Granite County, Montana, is a haunting testament to a bygone era. During its peak in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the saloon served as a lively gathering place for miners, travelers, and locals, offering respite from the harsh realities of frontier life. The clinking of glasses, the chatter of patrons, and the occasional burst of laughter or song filled the wooden interior, echoing off the rough-hewn walls and worn floorboards. Now abandoned and weathered by time, the saloon stands silent under the Montana sky, its doors sagging on rusted hinges and windows clouded with dust. Yet, for those who venture inside, the building is anything but empty. Visitors consistently report ghostly bartenders, shadowy patrons, phantom glasses moving, and the faint echoes of conversations, suggesting that the spirits of the saloon's lively past continue to haunt its walls. One of the most frequently reported phenomena at the Granite Saloon involves ghostly figures behind the bar. Witnesses describe translucent forms of bartenders polishing glasses, pouring drinks, or attending to customers who are no longer present. These apparitions often appear in period attire, wearing vests, shirts with rolled sleeves, and boaties, as if frozen in the routines of their daily work. Observers frequently note that the figures vanish or fade when approached directly, leaving behind the faint impression of movement and presence. Some visitors even describe seeing the same figure multiple times in different locations within the saloon, suggesting that the spirits replay their past activities in loops, creating the illusion of a living, active establishment. Shadowy figures among the tables and corners of the saloon are another hallmark of its haunting. Visitors often report seeing faint silhouettes seated at empty tables or standing near doorways, sometimes engaged in gestures that mimic conversation or the raising of glasses. These shadows appear fleetingly, disappearing when directly observed, but leaving an unmistakable impression of a crowd once present. In some accounts, multiple figures are seen simultaneously, their movements coordinated as if they are interacting with each other, silently enacting the social life of a bustling saloon. The presence of these shadowy patrons contributes to the immersive sense of history that permeates the space. Phantom glasses and other objects moving without explanation are also commonly reported. Guests have described seeing glasses sliding along the bar, bottles tipping over, or chairs shifting on the floor as if handled by invisible hands. These movements often coincide with sightings of ghostly bartenders or patrons, enhancing the impression that the saloon's spectral inhabitants are still conducting daily routines. In some instances, the sound of clinking glasses or the crash of falling bottles is heard without any visible cause, startling visitors and adding a tangible sense of activity to the haunted environment. Faint echoes of conversation, laughter, and music are frequently reported throughout the Granite Saloon. Witnesses describe hearing snippets of old-timey chatter, voices calling out orders, or the low murmur of patrons conversing at tables. Some guests report the faint strains of piano music or singing drifting from the back room, though no instruments or performers are present. These auditory phenomena often accompany the sight of ghostly figures, creating a layered, multisensory haunting experience that immerses visitors in the saloon's vibrant past. Paranormal investigators have captured recordings of whispers and indistinct voices, supporting the accounts of guests who claim to hear conversations that seem to replay the social life of the saloon. Footsteps echoing across the wooden floors are another common phenomenon. Visitors frequently hear the sound of boots or shoes moving from the bar to tables or across the main floor. These footsteps often appear to follow guests, creating the impression that unseen patrons are still wandering the saloon. In some reports, the footsteps are accompanied by the subtle shuffle of clothing or the movement of chairs, further suggesting that the spirits are engaged in familiar, everyday actions. Multiple footsteps are sometimes heard at once, reinforcing the notion of a ghostly crowd filling the abandoned space. Cold spots and sudden temperature changes are also frequently experienced. Guests often report chills near the bar, tables, or corners where shadowy figures have been sighted. These sudden drops in temperature can be intense, causing shivers or goosebumps, and are often felt alongside visual or auditory phenomena, suggesting a strong connection between the apparitions and the environment. Paranormal researchers theorize that these cold spots may be residual energy left behind by those who spent long hours in the saloon, perhaps during moments of heightened emotion, stress, or camaraderie. The architecture and layout of the Granite Saloon amplify its haunted atmosphere. The high ceilings, wooden beams, and narrow corridors between tables create natural acoustics that magnify even subtle sounds, while sunlight filtering through dusty windows casts shifting patterns of light and shadow. The worn floorboards creak underfoot, making it difficult to distinguish between ordinary noises and paranormal activity. Broken glass, warped wood, and faded paint add to the overall sense of age and abandonment, setting the stage for spectral activity to feel both realistic and immersive. Even in daylight, the Granite Saloon carries a palpable sense of presence. Visitors often describe feeling watched, sensing motion from empty corners, or hearing phantom sounds that seem to replay moments from the past. Ghostly bartenders, shadowy patrons, moving objects, footsteps, and unexplained cold spots combine to create a hauntingly vivid experience that immerses guests in the social and cultural history of the town, while leaving them with an undeniable impression of the supernatural. The Granite Saloon in Granite County, Montana, stands as a haunting reminder of the town's mining-era social life. Ghostly figures behind the bar, shadowy patrons among tables, phantom glasses moving, echoes of conversation and music, footsteps on wooden floors, and sudden chills all contribute to its reputation as a haunted location. Visitors leave with the sense that the saloon is far from empty, that the spirits of bartenders and patrons continue to replay the lively interactions of the past, preserving the history and memories of Granite for anyone daring enough to enter its doors. Bannock Mine, located in Beaverhead County, Montana, is a relic of the state's gold rush era, a place where the promise of fortune once drew hundreds of hopeful miners into the unforgiving Montana wilderness. The mine, now long abandoned, is carved into the rocky hillsides that surround the historic town of Bannock, and its dark tunnels and open shafts are a chilling reminder of the dangers that miners faced in pursuit of gold. Over the decades, countless stories have emerged of men who entered the mine and never returned, leaving behind only empty shafts, worn tools, and the lingering fear of the unknown. Today, Bannock Mine has developed a reputation as one of Montana's most haunted locations, with visitors reporting ghostly activity, including the sounds of pickaxes striking rock, shadowy figures appearing at mine entrances, and sudden cold drafts that cut through even the warmest summer air. One of the most commonly reported experiences at Bannock Mine is the sound of pickaxes striking stone. Witnesses describe hearing the distinct metallic clang of tools hitting rock, accompanied by the muffled shouts of men calling to one another. These sounds often occur in areas where no human presence is possible. Deep within tunnels that are partially collapsed or sealed off, some visitors report that the sounds start softly in the distance and grow louder as they approach, only to vanish suddenly when the area is investigated. Paranormal enthusiasts suggest that these noises are residual energy left by miners who perished in the mine, replaying their work and struggles for anyone daring enough to listen. Shadowy figures are another frequent phenomenon. Visitors have described seeing dark, human-shaped forms flit across tunnel entrances or linger near abandoned equipment. These figures are often only partially visible, sometimes appearing as silhouettes that blend with the shadows of the mine walls. Some witnesses report seeing figures moving deliberately, as if still carrying out tasks, while others describe fleeting glimpses that vanish when directly observed. Many visitors note that these apparitions feel intelligent or aware, reacting subtly to human presence, pausing for a moment, or shifting positions as if avoiding detection. These sightings contribute to a pervasive sense of unease, making even short visits to the mine intensely atmospheric. Sudden cold drafts are also commonly reported, striking visitors without warning. The mine tunnels and surrounding shafts, while largely enclosed, sometimes harbor unexplained pockets of frigid air that appear in areas that should be warm. Many report these drafts as intense enough to cause shivers, goosebumps, or even difficulty breathing. Cold spots often coincide with other phenomena, such as ghostly footsteps, shadowy figures, or the sounds of mining activity, suggesting a connection between the physical sensations and the spiritual energy that may linger in the mine. Researchers theorize that these cold drafts could be residual energy from the miner's work or from traumatic events that occurred within the mine over its operational history. Footsteps are another reported phenomenon in Banak Mine. Visitors describe hearing the unmistakable sound of boots or shoes moving along wooden beams, gravel floors, or rocky tunnels. These footsteps sometimes follow guests through narrow passages, creating the impression that unseen miners are still at work or wandering the mine corridors. Some accounts describe multiple sets of footsteps occurring simultaneously, as though a team of miners continues their labor long after death. The echoing sounds are often accompanied by creaks and groans of the old wooden supports and shafts, further enhancing the immersive, haunting atmosphere. Voices and whispers are also frequently reported. Visitors have heard muffled conversations, commands, or calls for help that appear to come from within the mine's interior. Some report hearing names being called, as if the miners are trying to summon someone or communicate across the tunnels. Others describe distant laughter or shouts that fade into silence, creating an eerie audio landscape that can unsettle even the most seasoned explorers. These auditory phenomena reinforce the sense that Banak Mine is not just a physical structure, but a place imbued with lingering memories of its past. The layout and environment of Banak Mine amplify the haunting experiences. Narrow passageways, steep shafts, and uneven rocky floors create natural acoustics that can make any sound reverberate unnaturally. Darkness, even during the day, dominates the mine's interior, allowing shadows to stretch and move in ways that can appear alive. Collapsed beams, old tools, and scattered remnants of mining operations provide visual triggers for the imagination, making it easy for visitors to perceive movement or presence where none exists. The combination of history, danger, and isolation creates a fertile ground for paranormal activity, enhancing both the sense of realism and fear. Even outside the mine, visitors report a strong sense of being watched or followed. Approaching the mine entrances or walking along abandoned tracks can evoke sudden chills, unexplained rustling of debris, or the sensation that unseen figures are observing their movements. Shadowy shapes are sometimes glimpsed near the openings, lingering just long enough to be noticed before vanishing into the darkness. These experiences suggest that the haunting of Banak Mine is not confined to the tunnels themselves, but extends into the surrounding area, touching anyone who dares to enter the historic site. The Banak Mine in Beaverhead County, Montana, remains a haunting testament to the dangers and tragedies of the gold rush era. The sounds of pickaxes striking rock, shadowy figures lurking at entrances, sudden cold drafts, footsteps echoing through tunnels, and distant whispers all contribute to its reputation as a haunted location. Visitors leave with a profound sense that the mine is far from empty, that the spirits of miners who perished continue to roam its tunnels, replaying their labor and struggles, and that the history of Banak is preserved not only in memory, but in spectral form for anyone brave enough to explore its darkened depths. Elkhorn Cemetery, nestled in the rugged hills of Powell County, Montana, is a solemn reminder of the town's storied past. Established during the height of the mining boom, the cemetery has long been the final resting place for miners, settlers, and families who called Elkhorn home. Weathered headstones, many leaning with age, and elaborate mausoleums mark the graves of those who lived and died in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Over time, the cemetery has gained a reputation far beyond its historical significance, becoming a site known for paranormal activity. Visitors frequently report ghostly figures moving silently among the graves, faint whispers and cries echoing through the night, and an almost tangible sense of being watched. Even during the day, the atmosphere carries a weighty stillness, as though the earth itself remembers the lives and deaths of those buried there. One of the most commonly reported phenomena at Elkhorn Cemetery is the appearance of shadowy figures among the headstones. Witnesses often describe humanoid shapes that seem to drift between graves or linger near particular monuments. These apparitions are sometimes only visible in the corner of the eye, vanishing when approached, while others appear more distinct, dressed in period clothing reminiscent of miners or townsfolk from over a century ago. Some visitors have claimed to see groups of figures moving together, silently reenacting long-forgotten moments from the town's past. The presence of these spirits creates an eerie juxtaposition against the cemetery's quiet, daytime serenity, a reminder that even in death, the past can linger. Whispers and cries are another frequent occurrence. Guests have reported faint murmurs, indistinct conversations, and soft cries that seem to come from nowhere, often intensifying in the stillness of the night. Some visitors describe hearing their own names called, or fragmented phrases like "Dan, leave me," or "come back," as though the spirits are attempting to communicate across the veil of time. The sounds are typically subtle at first, but can grow louder or more urgent, particularly when walking along rows of older graves. Paranormal investigators have captured recordings of these whispers, providing evidence that the cemetery's haunting is persistent and interacts with those who enter its grounds. Footsteps echoing across the cemetery are another commonly reported phenomenon. Guests frequently describe hearing the distinct sound of boots or shoes moving across gravel paths or shifting against the worn earth near graves. These footsteps often follow visitors as they explore the grounds, pausing and resuming unpredictably, creating the sensation that unseen figures are watching or moving alongside them. Some accounts suggest that multiple sets of footsteps occur at once, giving the impression of entire groups of spirits walking among the graves. These sounds, combined with the still night air and the soft rustle of leaves, contribute to a chilling auditory experience that heightens the sense of presence. Sudden cold drafts are also reported by visitors to Elkhorn Cemetery. The temperature can drop inexplicably as one approaches certain graves, headstones, or mausoleums. These icy gusts are often accompanied by feelings of unease or the impression of being observed, and they can appear even on warm summer nights. Many guests describe the cold spots as more than just environmental anomalies, sensing that they mark the presence of the restless dead. Paranormal researchers theorize that these temperature changes may be linked to residual energy left behind by traumatic deaths, long-forgotten events, or the collective emotion of those buried in the cemetery. Visual phenomena extend beyond mere shadowy figures. Visitors sometimes report seeing misty shapes rising from the earth, especially around older graves or unmarked plots. These spectral forms may appear fleetingly, dissolving into the darkness as the observer moves closer, or linger for longer periods, as though performing rituals or reenacting moments from life. Faint glowing lights have also been observed near certain headstones, drifting slowly across the cemetery and vanishing without explanation. Some speculate that these lights represent spirits attempting to signal their presence, guiding the living toward the memory of their past. The silence of Elkhorn Cemetery plays a significant role in its haunted reputation. Unlike the hum of urban areas, the cemetery is enveloped in a profound stillness, where even small sounds seem amplified. The crunch of gravel underfoot, the rustling of leaves in the wind, or the distant call of an animal resonates across the grounds, often interpreted as supernatural activity. Visitors have reported that this quiet intensifies the sensation of being watched, making even brief glimpses of shadowy figures or hearing soft whispers far more unsettling. The natural acoustics and the cemetery's isolation enhance the overall sense of immersion, allowing the presence of the dead to feel almost tangible. Elkhorn Cemetery's landscape further enhances its haunting atmosphere. Rows of headstones, many etched with names that have long since faded from local memory, create a labyrinth of history. Tall grasses, scattered wildflowers, and moss-covered monuments add to the feeling of abandonment, while old trees cast long, twisting shadows in the moonlight. Mausoleums with rusted gates and cracked stone walls serve as focal points for reported paranormal activity, with many visitors claiming to sense heightened energy near these structures. The combination of architecture, nature, and history creates an environment where the line between the living and the dead feels blurred. Even casual visitors often leave with a strong impression of Elkhorn Cemetery's otherworldly presence. Shadowy figures among the headstones, whispers and cries carried on the wind, phantom footsteps, cold drafts, and unexplained lights all contribute to its reputation as a haunted location. The cemetery does more than mark the final resting place of Elkhorn's residents. It preserves the memory, energy, and lingering presence of those who once lived in the mining town. For anyone brave enough to walk its paths after dark, the experience is immersive and haunting, leaving a profound sense that the dead are still very much part of the landscape. Elkhorn Cemetery in Powell County, Montana, stands as a chilling testament to the history and tragedies of the mining town it served. Ghostly figures, phantom whispers, unexplained sounds, cold spots, and mysterious lights all combine to create an atmosphere where the past feels alive and the presence of the restless dead is impossible to ignore. Visitors leave with the unmistakable feeling that, within the cemetery's boundaries, the history of Elkhorn continues to unfold, played out silently and invisibly by those who never truly left. Virginia City Cemetery, perched on a gentle rise overlooking the historic mining town of Virginia City in Madison County, Montana, has long been a resting place for those who helped shape the region during the height of the gold rush. Established in the mid-1800s, the cemetery holds the graves of miners, shopkeepers, families, and pioneers who lived and died during the town's most prosperous and often perilous years. Weathered headstones lean at angles, engraved with names and dates that tell stories of short lives, sudden tragedies, and families struggling to carve a home in the harsh Montana wilderness. Over the decades, the cemetery has earned a reputation for paranormal activity, drawing visitors and ghost hunters who report encounters with shadowy figures, faint cries, whispers, and an overwhelming sense of being watched. One of the most frequent reports involves the appearance of shadowy figures walking among the graves. Witnesses often describe human-shaped silhouettes gliding along the rows of headstones, moving with purpose as if still tending to the dead or watching over the town. These apparitions are sometimes partially visible, fading into the darkness when approached directly, while at other times they seem almost solid, dressed in period clothing that evokes miners' vests, hats, or women's long skirts. Some visitors have even reported seeing multiple figures at once, interacting silently with each other in ways that suggest they are reenacting moments from life, maintaining routines that once defined the living town. Faint cries and whispers are another common phenomenon at Virginia City Cemetery. Guests have described hearing the soft, mournful sobs of women, the distant calls of men shouting across the cemetery, or whispers that drift through the air without identifiable source. These sounds often intensify during the late evening or on foggy nights, carrying across rows of headstones and amplifying the eerie atmosphere. Some visitors report hearing their own names called out, or fragments of conversations that seem directed specifically at them. Paranormal investigators have captured recordings of these phenomena, noting that the voices often contain linguistic patterns consistent with the era in which the town thrived, reinforcing the connection between the sounds and the spirits of the town's former residents. Footsteps echoing across the cemetery grounds are also commonly reported. Guests describe hearing the unmistakable sound of boots crunching gravel or walking along worn pathways, even when they are alone. The footsteps sometimes follow visitors, stopping and starting unpredictably, creating the unsettling impression that unseen figures are moving alongside them. Multiple sets of footsteps are often reported at the same time, suggesting a ghostly crowd still navigating the cemetery in silent procession. The natural acoustics of the hilly terrain amplify every sound, making these auditory experiences feel even more tangible and immediate. Visitors frequently report sudden drops in temperature, particularly near older sections of the cemetery. Cold drafts seem to materialize without explanation, often accompanied by the feeling of being watched or the fleeting sense of a presence nearby. These chills can be sharp enough to cause goosebumps, and some have described the air as heavy or oppressive, as though the very atmosphere is infused with the memory of past lives and lingering spirits. Paranormal researchers suggest that these cold spots may be the result of residual energy from tragic deaths, unfulfilled lives, or emotional trauma from the town's turbulent history. Visual anomalies extend beyond shadowy figures. Some guests report misty shapes rising from the earth near graves, hovering silently or drifting between headstones before dissipating. Others claim to see faint, glowing lights that float among the tombstones, moving in ways that defy explanation. These lights sometimes appear near graves of miners or those who died under sudden or tragic circumstances, as though marking the spots where energy is strongest. Witnesses often describe the lights as soft and ethereal, almost beckoning visitors to notice the history that remains deeply embedded in the land. The layout and natural environment of Virginia City Cemetery contribute significantly to its haunted reputation. Sloping hills, scattered rocks, and dense clusters of old trees create shadows and shapes that seem alive, particularly during twilight hours. The rows of weathered headstones and occasional mausoleums form a labyrinthine landscape, ideal for the imagination and for unexplained phenomena to appear convincingly real. Even in daylight, the cemetery carries a sense of presence. The silence is profound, broken only by distant wind, the rustle of leaves, or the faint creak of old gates. Every sound seems magnified, and every shadow appears to have life of its own, making the cemetery a place where history feels palpable and the supernatural seems near. Visitors frequently leave the cemetery with a lingering sense that Virginia City Cemetery is far from empty. Shadowy figures, whispers, footsteps, sudden cold drafts, and floating lights all combine to create an immersive experience where the past is never truly gone. Miners who worked the hills, families who lived short, challenging lives, and townsfolk who walked the streets of Virginia City appear to maintain a presence, silently observing the living and replaying fragments of their lives in spectral echoes. The cemetery's haunting is both historical and emotional. It preserves the memory of Virginia City's residents, the hardships they endured, and the suddenness with which many lives ended. Each ghostly figure, each whisper, and each unexplained sound serves as a reminder that the town's story is written not only in documents and headstones, but also in the lingering energy of those who remain tied to the land. For those brave enough to walk its paths after dusk, Virginia City Cemetery offers an immersive encounter with history, memory, and the inexplicable. The shadows of the miners and townsfolk continue to roam the grounds, their presence as undeniable as the gravestones themselves, leaving visitors with a profound sense that the dead, in some way, are still very much part of the landscape. Virginia City Cemetery, in Madison County, Montana, is a place where shadowy figures, whispers, phantom footsteps, cold drafts, and ghostly lights converge to create a haunting experience. The spirits of miners, townsfolk, and families replay fragments of their lives among the graves, preserving the town's history in spectral form and leaving a lasting impression on all who enter its grounds. Garnet Cemetery, located in the rugged hills of Missoula County, Montana, is a quiet yet eerie reminder of the town's gold mining past. Established during the late 19th century, Garnet itself was once a thriving mining settlement, bustling with men and women drawn to the promise of fortune. Over time, however, the town was abandoned, leaving behind empty streets, weathered buildings, and a cemetery that holds the remains of those who lived and labored in the harsh Montana wilderness. Today, Garnet Cemetery has become infamous among locals and visitors alike for its paranormal activity. Ghostly figures rising from graves, cold drafts that appear without explanation, and the faint echo of mournful wails are commonly reported by those who dare to walk among the headstones. Some believe the spirits of miners linger, unwilling to leave the town behind, replaying moments of their lives for anyone who ventures close enough to witness them. One of the most frequent reports from visitors involves the appearance of ghostly figures rising from the graves. Witnesses often describe humanoid shapes emerging from the earth, sometimes partially visible, other times fully formed, standing silently as if caught between the realms of life and death. These apparitions often resemble miners dressed in period clothing, with hats, vests, and boots, and they sometimes appear to move through the cemetery in slow, deliberate motions. Some observers claim the figures seem to carry invisible tools, striking imaginary rock or examining long-gone claims, as if continuing the work that once defined their lives. Others report seeing more fleeting shapes, glimpsed from the corner of the eye, vanishing whenever they attempt to look directly at them. Visitors also report cold drafts that seem to manifest without any logical source. These sudden drops in temperature are often described as sharp and intense, capable of raising goosebumps even on a warm day. The cold spots are typically accompanied by an uncanny feeling of being watched or followed, making visitors acutely aware of the cemetery's presence. Many believe that these chills mark the location of strong spiritual energy, possibly linked to the miners who died suddenly or tragically, or to the families buried nearby. Paranormal investigators suggest that the cold drafts may be manifestations of residual energy, left behind by the emotional intensity and hardships experienced by those who lived and died in Garnet. The cemetery is also known for the faint echo of mournful wails that drift through the night air. Visitors have reported hearing cries of despair or sorrow that appear to come from the earth itself. These wails often rise and fall in intensity, sometimes seeming distant and other times startlingly close, as if someone or something is moving silently among the graves. Some guests have described hearing the cries of children or women, mixed with the low murmurs of men, creating a layered audio experience that evokes the hardships of frontier life. The mournful sounds add to the cemetery's chilling atmosphere, reinforcing the idea that the spirits of the dead are not at peace. Footsteps are another commonly reported phenomenon in Garnet Cemetery. Visitors describe hearing the distinct crunch of boots or the soft scuffing of shoes on gravel paths, even when they are alone. These sounds sometimes follow individuals as they move through the cemetery, stopping and resuming unpredictably, giving the impression that unseen figures are walking alongside them. In some cases, multiple sets of footsteps are heard simultaneously, as though groups of miners continue to navigate the cemetery, performing tasks that belong to a bygone era. These auditory experiences, combined with the natural acoustics of the cemetery's uneven terrain and the stillness of the surrounding landscape, create a deeply immersive and unsettling atmosphere. Misty shapes rising from graves are also commonly observed. Visitors report seeing vaporous forms drifting between headstones or hovering near mausoleums, often accompanied by flickering lights or shadows that seem to move independently. Some of these forms appear to be in mourning, bowing their heads or reaching toward other graves, while others move as if reenacting moments from their daily lives as miners or townsfolk. Occasional flashes of faint illumination have been observed near older graves, suggesting the presence of a spiritual energy that is both interactive and visible under the right conditions. The layout and environment of Garnet Cemetery amplify its haunting qualities. Rows of headstones, some barely legible due to age and weathering, create a labyrinth of memory and history. Overgrown grasses, scattered rocks, and the remnants of fallen monuments provide both visual and tactile reminders of the passage of time. Trees cast long, twisting shadows over the grounds, particularly in moonlight, turning even familiar landmarks into mysterious shapes. The silence of the surrounding forested hills adds to the sense of isolation, making every sound wind in the trees. Gravel underfoot, distant wildlife feel magnified and sometimes indistinguishable from ghostly activity. The cemetery's haunting is not limited to visual or auditory phenomena. Many visitors report a pervasive sense of being watched or followed, a feeling that becomes more intense at dusk or on foggy nights. Shadowy movements at the edges of vision, the sensation of a presence beside or behind, and the inexplicable sensation of eyes upon them are all common experiences. These subtle interactions contribute to a sense that Garnet Cemetery is alive with energy, even in the absence of physical life. For those who walk its quiet paths, Garnet Cemetery is more than a historical site. It is a place where the past lingers, where the miners and families who once lived in Garnet continue to inhabit the land in spectral form. Ghostly figures, cold drafts, mournful cries, footsteps, and misty apparitions all combine to create an atmosphere thick with history and lingering spirits. Visitors leave with the undeniable feeling that Garnet Cemetery is a place where the dead have not entirely departed, where memory and presence converge, and where the energy of a long-abandoned town continues to echo through the hills. Garnet Cemetery, in Missoula County, Montana, stands as a testament to the enduring presence of the past. Shadowy figures rising from graves, cold drafts, ghostly footsteps, and mournful wails all contribute to its reputation as a haunted location. The spirits of miners, families, and townsfolk remain tied to the land, ensuring that the stories of Garnet continue to unfold for anyone daring enough to step into its quiet, haunted grounds. Castle Cemetery, situated in the remote hills of Marr County, Montana, is a haunting testament to the region's long-forgotten past. This abandoned burial ground, established in the late 1800s, once served a small community of miners, ranchers, and settlers who braved the harsh Montana wilderness in search of fortune and survival. Over the decades, the town around Castle faded away, leaving the cemetery as one of the few remaining markers of life that once thrived in the area. Today, it is a place known not only for its historical significance, but also for the eerie paranormal phenomena reported by visitors. Shadowy figures gliding between the headstones, whispers that seem to emanate from the earth itself, and an overwhelming sense of being watched are frequent experiences that have earned Castle Cemetery a reputation as a haunted location. One of the most common reports from visitors involves shadowy figures moving among the graves. Witnesses describe human-like silhouettes appearing between headstones, sometimes lingering near older monuments and then vanishing as if dissolving into the mist. These apparitions often resemble the miners and settlers who were buried here, wearing period clothing such as vests, hats, or long skirts. Some visitors have seen multiple figures interacting silently, appearing to go about tasks that were once part of daily life, such as tending graves or walking along the worn paths. Others report fleeting glimpses, seen only from the corner of their eyes, leaving them with a persistent feeling of unease. Whispers are another frequently reported phenomenon. Visitors often hear faint murmurs that seem to rise directly from the ground, drifting along the paths and between the graves. These whispers are usually indistinct, fragmented phrases that can sound like names, calls for help, or incomplete conversations. Some witnesses have described hearing their own names softly spoken, while others perceive gentle admonishments or pleas, as if the spirits are trying to communicate across the boundary between life and death. The whispers are often more pronounced in the stillness of night, carried by the wind, giving the impression that the cemetery itself is speaking. Paranormal investigators have recorded these sounds, noting patterns that suggest the voices are tied to specific graves or areas within the cemetery. Footsteps echoing in the cemetery are a common auditory experience. Visitors often report hearing the crunch of gravel, the soft tap of boots on worn paths, or the scuffing of shoes near headstones, even when no other person is present. The footsteps sometimes follow individuals, pausing and resuming unpredictably, creating the sensation that unseen figures are walking alongside them. In other cases, multiple sets of footsteps are heard at the same time, suggesting the presence of groups moving silently among the graves. These sounds, combined with the natural acoustics of the hills and valleys surrounding Castle Cemetery, make the auditory experiences particularly unsettling and immersive. Cold spots are another phenomenon frequently observed by those who explore Castle Cemetery. Sudden drops in temperature appear without warning, often near older graves or clusters of headstones. These icy drafts are capable of producing goosebumps and a sense of physical unease, sometimes accompanied by the feeling of being observed or followed. Visitors frequently report that the cold intensifies as they approach certain areas, as if marking the presence of a restless spirit or lingering energy. Paranormal researchers suggest that these cold spots may be manifestations of residual emotional energy left behind by the miners and settlers who lived and died under harsh and often tragic circumstances. Visual apparitions at Castle Cemetery are not limited to shadowy figures. Misty shapes are sometimes seen rising from the earth, hovering near graves, or drifting along the pathways. These spectral forms often appear to mimic actions from life, such as tending graves, walking toward distant monuments, or bowing in silent remembrance. Occasionally, visitors report faint glimmers of light that appear near older headstones or mausoleums, moving slowly across the cemetery and disappearing without explanation. Some theorize that these lights are manifestations of the spirits themselves, attempting to make their presence known to the living. The cemetery's layout contributes to its haunting atmosphere. Weathered headstones lean at odd angles, engraved with names and dates that are barely legible, a testament to time and the harsh elements. Overgrown grasses, scattered stones, and moss-covered monuments create a labyrinthine landscape that feels both alive and abandoned. Tall trees cast twisting shadows across the paths, particularly under the light of the moon, adding to the feeling that shapes move and shift just beyond perception. Even during daylight hours, the cemetery carries a profound sense of stillness and isolation, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves, distant wildlife, or the faint creak of old gates. Visitors often leave Castle Cemetery with the feeling that it is far from empty. Shadowy figures, whispers, phantom footsteps, cold drafts, and misty apparitions combine to create an immersive experience where the past feels present and the dead remain entwined with the land. The miners and settlers buried here appear to continue their routines, wandering the cemetery silently, their energy lingering long after life has departed. Castle Cemetery, in Marr County, Montana, stands as both a historical site and a haunted landmark. Shadowy figures moving between headstones, whispers emanating from the earth, cold drafts, phantom footsteps, and mysterious lights all contribute to its reputation. The spirits of miners, settlers, and long-forgotten townsfolk remain tied to the cemetery, ensuring that the story of Castle's past continues to resonate through its empty, haunting grounds. Those who walk its paths after dusk encounter an eerie, tangible connection to history, where the living and the dead share the same silent, fog-laden landscape. Granite Cemetery, located in the remote hills of Granite County, Montana, is a somber reminder of the perils and tragedies that accompanied the state's gold and silver mining boom. Established in the late 1800s, the cemetery became the final resting place for miners, families, and townsfolk who lived and died during Granite's most prosperous yet dangerous years. Many of those interred here lost their lives in sudden mining accidents, harsh winters, or unexpected illnesses. And over time, the cemetery itself has become shrouded in stories of paranormal activity. Visitors frequently report encounters with shadowy figures, phantom cries echoing across the grounds, sudden cold drafts, and the unsettling feeling of being watched. Granite Cemetery is regarded as one of the most haunted locations in the region, drawing curious explorers and paranormal investigators hoping to experience the lingering presence of the past. One of the most frequently reported phenomena involves shadowy figures moving silently among the graves. Witnesses describe human-shaped silhouettes emerging near headstones or drifting along gravel pathways, often vanishing when approached directly. Some figures appear to resemble miners from the late 19th century, their hats and jackets faintly discernible in dim light. Others are more ephemeral, manifesting as darker shapes that seem to glide just above the ground. Several visitors have described seeing multiple figures at once, appearing to interact with one another, or silently tending graves, as if still performing tasks from life. These visual encounters create a chilling sense of history replaying itself, the dead unwilling to leave the place they once called home. Phantom cries are another hallmark of granite cemeteries. The wails are often described as mournful and sorrowful, carrying across the cemetery from grave sites that may be decades or even a century old. Some visitors report hearing the cries of women mourning lost children or miners calling out in fear and pain, their voices trapped in the earth. The sounds are rarely constant, often rising and falling unexpectedly, amplifying the eerie stillness of the cemetery. On foggy nights, the cries are particularly unnerving, carrying farther through the mist-laden air and seeming to come from multiple directions simultaneously. Paranormal researchers have captured recordings of these audio phenomena, noting that they often appear to originate from areas with the highest concentration of historic mining graves. Footsteps echoing across the cemetery are another commonly reported phenomenon. Visitors frequently describe the unmistakable sound of boots or shoes crunching gravel or stone paths, even when walking alone. Sometimes these footsteps seem to follow individuals, stopping and starting unpredictably, creating the impression that unseen figures are walking alongside them. In other cases, multiple sets of footsteps can be heard moving in different directions at the same time, suggesting groups of spirits continuing their routines or wandering the grounds. The uneven terrain of the cemetery, with its slopes, scattered stones, and dense clusters of headstones, amplifies these sounds, making them feel unnervingly close. Sudden drops in temperature or cold spots are also a frequent experience at Granite Cemetery. Visitors often report feeling icy drafts that appear without explanation, sometimes near older graves or mausoleums. These cold spots are accompanied by an intense feeling of being watched, as if unseen eyes are following every step. Some describe the chill as sharp enough to cause goosebumps or a deep sense of unease, reinforcing the idea that the cemetery is more than just a resting place. It is a repository of energy left behind by those who died under sudden or tragic circumstances. Paranormal investigators theorize that these cold spots may be manifestations of residual emotional energy from the miners and families who endured difficult and often fatal conditions. Visual apparitions are not limited to shadowy figures. Many visitors have reported misty shapes rising from graves, drifting between headstones, or hovering near monuments. Occasionally, faint lights have been observed near older graves, glowing softly before fading into darkness. Some theorists suggest these lights are the result of spiritual energy attempting to interact with the living, marking places where strong emotions or sudden deaths occurred. The cemetery's environment amplifies the haunting experience. Weathered headstones lean at odd angles, engraved with the names of miners, wives, and children, many of them barely legible due to age and exposure. Overgrown grasses and scattered stones create a sense of wild abandonment, while tall trees cast long, twisting shadows across the grounds, particularly in the pale light of dawn or dusk. Even during daylight hours, the silence is profound, broken only by the wind rustling through leaves or distant wildlife, making every sound footsteps, whispers, or a sudden clatter feel magnified and sometimes supernatural. Visitors often leave Granite Cemetery with the undeniable sense that it is far from empty. Shadowy figures, phantom cries, footsteps, cold spots, and drifting mist create a feeling that the past remains vividly present. The miners and townsfolk who once lived and worked in granite appear to continue their routines, silently moving among the graves, preserving a connection to the land they once inhabited. Every shadow and sound contributes to the atmosphere, reminding guests that the cemetery is alive with history and lingering spirits. Granite Cemetery, in Granite County, Montana, stands as both a historic site and a place of lingering energy. Shadowy figures, phantom cries, mysterious footsteps, and cold drafts all contribute to its haunted reputation. The spirits of miners, settlers, and families remain tied to the grounds, replaying fragments of their lives for anyone who ventures close enough to witness them. For those willing to walk its paths, Granite Cemetery offers a tangible connection to the past, where the living and the dead share the same quiet, haunting landscape. Elkhorn Cemetery, located in the isolated hills of Jefferson County, Montana, is a haunting relic of the state's mining past. Established in the late 1800s, it served as the final resting place for miners, families, and townsfolk who once inhabited the thriving mining town of Elkhorn. Over the decades, as the mines closed and the town emptied, the cemetery remained, quietly preserving the memories and histories of those who had passed. Today, Elkhorn Cemetery is widely regarded as a site of paranormal activity, drawing both curious visitors and serious investigators who are eager to witness the lingering presence of the past. Shadowy figures moving silently among the graves, phantom voices calling out names, and sudden, chilling drafts are among the most frequently reported phenomena. One of the most common experiences described by visitors is the appearance of ghostly figures moving between the headstones. Witnesses often describe human-shaped silhouettes gliding through the cemetery, appearing and disappearing without warning. Some figures resemble miners in period attire, complete with hats, coats, and boots, as if they are still tending to their daily routines long after death. Others appear more ethereal, darker shapes that seem to drift above the ground or move through tombstones. Observers often report seeing multiple figures at once, sometimes engaged in silent, seemingly purposeful activities, such as standing near graves, walking along the worn paths, or bending over as though tending to the earth. These apparitions are typically fleeting, vanishing when approached, leaving visitors with an overwhelming sense that the cemetery is alive with restless spirits. Phantom voices are another striking aspect of the hauntings at Elkhorn Cemetery. Many visitors report hearing faint whispers, calling out names, or murmuring fragmented phrases. These voices often seem to come from directly within the earth itself, drifting across the cemetery in ways that defy logical explanation. Some witnesses claim to hear their own names spoken softly, while others describe hearing cries of grief or pain that echo through the stillness of the night. The voices are most frequently reported after dusk, when the shadows lengthen and the wind carries the sound across the open grounds. Paranormal investigators have captured recordings of these sounds, noting that they often appear near older graves or clusters of headstones, suggesting a connection to specific individuals buried in the cemetery. Visitors also commonly experience sudden chills that seem to cut through the night air. These cold spots can occur without warning, appearing near graves, along pathways, or in the center of open areas. The temperature drops are often accompanied by the sensation of being watched or followed, heightening the sense of unease. Some describe the cold as sharp and penetrating, producing goosebumps or an almost physical fear. These phenomena are thought to be manifestations of residual energy left behind by the miners and townsfolk who endured difficult and often tragic lives. The combination of temperature shifts and the eerie quiet of the abandoned town amplifies the feeling that Elkhorn Cemetery is far from empty. Footsteps are another common occurrence reported by visitors. Even when walking alone, many hear the unmistakable sound of boots or shoes moving across gravel and dirt paths, echoing near the headstones. Sometimes these footsteps seem to follow visitors, pausing and resuming unpredictably, creating the impression that unseen figures are walking alongside them. In other instances, Multiple sets of footsteps can be heard moving in different directions at the same time, as if groups of spirits continue to roam the cemetery. The acoustics of the surrounding hills enhance these sounds, making them feel close, yet impossible to trace to any source. Misty shapes and fleeting shadows add a visual component to the cemetery's hauntings. Visitors report seeing forms rise from graves, drift along paths, or hover near older monuments. Some of these apparitions appear to mimic life, moving as though performing tasks or walking toward unseen destinations. Occasionally, faint glimmers of light are observed near headstones, shining briefly before fading into darkness. These visual anomalies, combined with the sounds of phantom footsteps and whispers, create a deeply immersive and chilling experience for anyone exploring the cemetery after dusk. The environment of Elkhorn Cemetery enhances its haunting qualities. Weathered headstones, leaning at angles over time, mark the resting places of miners, families, and children. Engravings are often barely legible, a testament to decades of exposure to Montana's harsh elements. Overgrown grasses, scattered stones, and the remnants of collapsed fences give the cemetery a wild, abandoned feel. Tall trees cast long shadows that twist across paths and graves, particularly under moonlight, creating shapes that seem to move at the edge of vision. Even during daylight, the quiet of the hills surrounding the cemetery magnifies every rustle of leaves or distant animal call, making each sound seem loaded with potential spectral presence. Many visitors leave Elkhorn Cemetery with a profound sense that it is far from empty. Shadowy figures, phantom voices, footsteps, misty shapes, and sudden chills create a presence that is almost tangible. The miners, townsfolk, and families buried here appear to continue their routines, moving silently among the graves, preserving a connection to the land they once called home. Every shadow and sound reinforces the feeling that the cemetery holds stories that remain active, replaying fragments of life and death for those who dare to observe. Elkhorn Cemetery, in Jefferson County, Montana, is more than a historical site. It is a haunted landscape where the living and the dead share the same silent, fog-laden hills. Shadowy figures, phantom voices, chilling drafts, and footsteps echoing across the gravel all contribute to its reputation as a place where spirits linger. The cemetery preserves the energy of miners and townsfolk, ensuring that the story of Elkhorn continues to unfold for anyone brave enough to walk its quiet paths. Those who enter experience a tangible connection to the past, where the dead remain intertwined with the land and their presence is felt long after the visitor leaves. Nevada City Cemetery, nestled in the quiet hills of Madison County, Montana, is a haunting relic of a bygone era. Once serving the bustling mining town of Nevada City, the cemetery now stands as a solemn reminder of the lives and tragedies of those who lived and worked in this remote region. Established in the late 1800s, it became the final resting place for miners, their families, and townsfolk who succumbed to accidents, illness, or the harsh Montana winters. Over time, as the mining operations ceased and the town dwindled, the cemetery remained weathered and overgrown, yet infused with an eerie vitality that many visitors and paranormal investigators have described as unsettling. Reports of shadowy figures, phantom footsteps, faint screams, and the chilling sensation of unseen eyes following every step have earned Nevada City Cemetery a reputation as one of the most haunted sites in the county. Shadowy figures are among the most frequently reported phenomena at Nevada City Cemetery. Witnesses often describe human-shaped silhouettes moving silently between the headstones, appearing and disappearing without warning. Some figures resemble miners dressed in period clothing, complete with hats, vests, and boots, as if they are continuing the routines of their past lives. Others appear as darker, more indistinct forms, gliding across the graves or hovering near monuments. Many visitors have observed multiple figures at once, sometimes seeming to interact with one another or tending to graves, while others vanish suddenly when approached. These apparitions are often glimpsed from the corner of the eye, leaving a lingering sense of unease and a distinct impression that the cemetery is alive with restless spirits. Phantom footsteps are another hallmark of the cemetery's paranormal activity. Visitors frequently report hearing the sound of boots or shoes crunching gravel or moving across the worn paths, even when the grounds are entirely empty. These footsteps often seem to follow individuals as they walk, starting and stopping unpredictably, creating the sensation that unseen presences are accompanying them. In some cases, multiple sets of footsteps are heard simultaneously, as if groups of spirits are roaming the cemetery. The undulating terrain, scattered stones, and clusters of headstones amplify the sound, making it feel unnervingly close and impossible to locate. The footsteps, combined with the natural stillness of the hills and valleys, contribute to a pervasive feeling that the living are not alone. Faint screams and whispers also contribute to the haunting atmosphere. Visitors often report hearing mournful cries that seem to emanate from the graves themselves, sometimes echoing across the cemetery with a chilling clarity. These phantom sounds are described as the voices of miners who perished in accidents, or of townsfolk mourning lost loved ones. Occasionally, whispers are reported calling out names, pleading for help, or speaking fragmented phrases that cannot be fully understood. The combination of faint screams, murmurs, and the cemetery's natural acoustics creates an auditory experience that feels deeply connected to the tragic past of Nevada City. Paranormal researchers have captured these sounds on recording devices, noting that they frequently arise near older graves and sections with the highest concentration of historic burials. Sudden cold spots are another phenomenon often encountered by visitors. Walking through the cemetery, many experience abrupt drops in temperature, sometimes near specific graves or in open areas where no apparent cause exists. These cold drafts often induce goosebumps and a deep sense of unease, frequently accompanied by the sensation of being watched. Many report that the chill intensifies as they approach particular areas, reinforcing the impression that the spirits of the dead remain tethered to the grounds. Paranormal investigators theorize that these cold spots may be residual energy left by the miners and townsfolk who endured dangerous work and harsh living conditions, lingering long after death. Visual anomalies are also reported by those exploring Nevada City Cemetery. Misty shapes, faint lights, and shifting shadows are commonly observed, rising from graves or drifting between monuments. These apparitions often mimic actions from life, such as walking, bending over headstones, or standing vigil silently. Some visitors have reported seeing fleeting glimmers of light near older graves, glowing briefly before disappearing, adding to the spectral ambience of the cemetery. Combined with whispers, footsteps, and sudden chills, these visual phenomena create an immersive, haunting experience. The environment itself enhances the cemetery's eerie reputation. Weathered headstones lean at odd angles, engraved with names of miners, families, and children, many of them barely legible after decades of exposure to wind, rain, and snow. Overgrown grasses and scattered stones give the cemetery a wild, abandoned appearance, while tall trees cast twisting shadows across the paths and graves. Especially under the glow of moonlight, even during daylight, the quiet of the hills and the surrounding forest amplifies every sound, making rustling leaves, distant wildlife, or the creaking of old gates feel unnervingly alive. Visitors frequently leave Nevada City Cemetery with the impression that the cemetery is far from empty. Shadowy figures, phantom footsteps, faint screams, cold drafts, and glimmering lights create the sense that the dead are not at rest, continuing their routines, or wandering silently among the graves. The miners, townsfolk, and families who once lived and worked in Nevada City appear to remain tied to the cemetery, preserving a connection to the land they once called home. Every shadow, every sound, and every chill reinforces the feeling that this is a place where history and the supernatural intersect. Nevada City Cemetery in Madison County, Montana, is both a historical landmark and a site of lingering spectral presence. Shadowy figures, phantom footsteps, eerie cries, and cold drafts all contribute to its haunted reputation. The spirits of miners and townsfolk, remain intertwined with the cemetery grounds, their presence felt in ways that are both subtle and chilling. For those who walk its paths after dusk, the cemetery offers a tangible link to the past, where the lives, deaths, and restless energy of Nevada City's residents continue to echo across the silent, fog-laden landscape. There you have it, 25 haunted ghost towns in Montana with eerie silence. From abandoned mining camps to forgotten frontier settlements, these towns are more than relics. They are vessels of memory, sorrow, and restless spirits. Shadowy figures, phantom footsteps, and whispers on the wind remind us that some places never forget, and some souls never truly leave. If tonight's journey through Montana's haunted ghost towns sent chills down your spine, make sure to subscribe, ring the bell, and join us for more explorations of haunted places, abandoned towns, and the mysteries that linger in silence. Keep your lanterns close, your senses sharp, and your courage strong, because in Montana's haunted ghost towns, the silence speaks, and the dead are always watching. Stay brave, stay curious, and good night.